Imagine a fog-choked London evening where a single, cryptic letter arrives at Hercule Poirot's doorstep, marked only with an ornate key. In 30 seconds, the world's greatest detective is drawn into a labyrinth of secrets at Blackthorn Manor, a decaying estate hiding a 20-year-old mystery, a summoned Poirot and a cast of strangers, cunning heiress, a battle-scarred colonel, a glamorous actress, and a nervous historian to this forsaken place. What is the secret key, and why does it promise a fortune stained with betrayal and blood? As shadows move in locked corridors and a scream pierces the night, one question burns: will Poirot unravel the maze of motives before the past claims its next victim? Dive into a tale of deception where every clue twists the truth and the stakes are nothing less than justice itself. Chapter 1. The Enigmatic Invitation. The fog hung low over London, curling through the narrow streets like a living thing, muffling the clatter of horse-drawn carriages and the distant hum of early motorcars. Hercule Poirot, impeccably dressed, in a tailored overcoat and polished shoes, stood at the window of his modest yet elegant flat at Whitehaven Mansions. His gloved fingers tapped rhythmically against the sill, a habit born of restless thought. The city, cloaked in its November gloom, seemed to whisper secrets, and Poirot, ever attuned to such murmurs, felt a prickle of anticipation. On the mahogany desk behind him lay an envelope, its cream vellum surface marred only by a single, bold flourish, an ornate key etched in black ink. The letter within had arrived that morning, delivered by a courier, who vanished into the mist before Poirot's manservant, George, could inquire further. The message was brief, tantalizingly cryptic, and penned in a hand that suggested both education and urgency. Dear Monsieur Poirot, your reputation as a man of unparalleled intellect precedes you. I invite you to Blackthorn Manor, in the heart of the Devon countryside, for a weekend that promises revelations of a most extraordinary nature. A secret, long buried, awaits your discernment. Arrive by the 6:15 train from Paddington on Friday. All shall be made clear. Yours in anticipation. The key, no signature. No name, just the symbol of a key, identical to the one on the envelope. Poirot had turned the letter over in his hands, his sharp green eyes narrowing as he studied the paper's texture, the ink's hue. It was no ordinary invitation. It reeked of purpose, of a challenge laid at the feet of his little gray cells. And Hercule Poirot was not a man to decline a challenge. George, he called, turning from the window. His manservant, a wiry man, with a perpetually deferential air, appeared from the next room, polishing cloth in hand. Prepare my valise. I shall be traveling to Devon tomorrow. Very good, sir, George replied, his tone as measured as ever. Might I inquire as to the nature of the journey? Poirot's mustache twitched, a faint smile curling beneath it. A mystery, George. One does not refuse an enigma when it presents itself so boldly. The train to Devon was a marvel of modern engineering, its steam engine puffing with rhythmic determination as it carved through the rolling countryside. Poirot, seated in a first-class compartment, sipped a tisane and reviewed the letter once more. The key symbol intrigued him most. Was it a literal key, an object of significance, or a metaphor for some deeper truth? He suspected the answer lay in Blackthorn Manor, a name that stirred vague memories of old society gossip, something about a vanished lord and a scandal hushed up decades ago. The compartment door slid open, admitting a porter with a deferential nod. Blackthorn halt in 10 minutes, sir, Mercy Poirot replied, gathering his belongings. His mind buzzed with possibilities, each carefully catalogued and examined. Who was this mysterious host? Why summon him, of all people? And why the anonymity? The questions multiplied, each a thread in the tapestry of intrigue he was determined to unravel. Blackthorn Halt was little more than a wooden platform flanked by hedgerows. the air thick with the scent of damp earth and wood smoke. A carriage awaited, its driver a taciturn man in a weathered coat who merely nodded when Poirot presented his invitation. The ride to Blackthorn Manor was silent, save for the creak of wheels and the soft thud of hooves on the muddy lane. The docked manor loomed into view as the carriage crested a sprawling edifice of gray stone, its towers clawing at the twilight sky. Ivy clung to its walls, and the windows glowed with the flicker of gaslight, suggesting life within, despite the estate's air of neglect. The carriage halted before a set of iron gates, their intricate design marred by rust. A footman, young and nervous, ushered Poirot through a grand oak door into a cavernous hall. The interior was a study in faded opulence, marble floors dulled by time, chandeliers draped in cobwebs, and portraits of stern-faced ancestors glaring from the walls. A fire crackled in a massive hearth, casting shadows that danced across the faces of the other guests, who stood in a loose semicircle, their expressions a mix of curiosity and unease. "Monsieur Hercule Poirot, I presume?" A woman stepped forward, her voice sharp and commanding. She was tall, her auburn hair swept into an elegant chignon, her emerald gown a stark contrast to the room's decay. Her eyes, however, betrayed a flicker of nervousness. "I am Lady Beatrice Harrow, heiress to the Harrow fortune, or what remains of it." Poirot bowed, his movements precise in chant. "Madame, I take it you, too, received an invitation?" "Indeed," she replied, producing a letter identical to his own, complete with the key symbol, "though I have no idea who sent it. This place gives me the shivers." Others approached, each clutching their own invitation. Colonel Rupert Langley, a barrel-chested man with a bristling mustache and a military bearing, introduced himself with a curt nod. "Served in India, retired now. Don't know why I'm here, but I never turned down a mystery." His voice carried the gravel of too many cigars. Next came Madame Vivienne Laurent, a French actress whose beauty was undimmed by her 40 years. Her blonde curls framed a face that had graced London stages, and her smile was practiced but strained. "Monsieur Poirot," she purred, her accent a soft echo of his own. "I had hoped to meet you under happier circumstances. This place feels like a tomb." The final guest was Mr. Clarence Whitby, historian with a nervous tic and a pair of spectacles perched precariously on his nose. "I study antiquities," he stammered, clutching a worn notebook. "Blackthorn Manor's history is complicated. I was invited to research its archives, but this," he gestured at the letter, "this is most irregular." The group exchanged wary glances, each sizing up the others. Poirot noted their postures, their expressions, the subtle tells of discomfort or deceit. Lady Beatrice's fingers twisted a pearl necklace. The colonel's hand rested near his pocket, as if expecting trouble. Madame Vivienne's smile flickered like a candle in a draught, and Mr. Whitby's eyes darted to the shadows. They were strangers, yet bound by a shared summons. A butler appeared, his gaunt frame and hollow cheeks lending him the air of a spectre. "Dinner is served," he intoned, leading them to a dining room where a long table was set with crystal and silver. The meal was lavish roast pheasant, creamed potatoes, and a claret that Poirot approved with a nod, but the absence of their host cast a pall. Cons waited, punctuated by the clink of cutlery and the howl of the wind outside. "Does anyone know who owns this place now?" Lady Beatrice asked, breaking a long silence. "The Blackthorn family is gone, isn't it?" Mr. Whitby cleared his throat. "Lord Reginald Blackthorn, the last of the line, vanished in 1905. No heirs, no trace. The estate passed to a distant cousin, but it's been empty for years. Vanished." Madame Vivienne raised an eyebrow. "That sounds like a story, a scandal," the colonel grunted. "Heard it in my club." Blackthorn was mixed up in something unsavory, smuggling, perhaps, or worse. Then, poof, gone. Poirot listened, his mind cataloging each detail. In this secret key, mentioned in our invitations. What do you know of it? The guests exchanged glances, but it was Whitby who spoke. A legend, Monsieur Poirot. Lord Blackthorn was obsessed with an artifact key, supposedly, that unlocked a fortune hidden on the estate. Treasure hunters have searched for it ever since, but it's likely a myth. Yet someone believes it real enough to summon us, Poirot mused, his eyes gleaming. And where is our host? This absence is most deliberate. The butler reappeared, carrying a silver tray with a single envelope. This was left for you, he said, placing it before Poirot. The key symbol adorned it, and inside was a note. Welcome to Blackthorn Manor. The game begins tonight. Seek the journal in the West Wing. Holds the first thread of the truth. The key, the guests murmured, their unease palpable. Poirot rose, his presence commanding despite his diminutive stature. Mies, Amos, it seems we are players in a grand puzzle. I propose we find this journal. The West Wing was a labyrinth of corridors, their walls lined with faded tapestries and locked doors. The air grew colder as they ventured deeper, the gaslight flickering as if reluctant to reveal what lay ahead. Lady Beatrice clutched her shawl, while the colonel's hand hovered near his pocket. Madame Vivian's laughter rang hollow, and Whitby's muttering about cursed estates did little to ease the tension. At the end of a long hall stood a door, its brass handle engraved with the key symbol. It was locked, but Poirot, ever observant, noted a loose floorboard nearby. Kneeling, he pried it up, revealing a small iron key. The first test, he said, fitting it into the lock. The door creaked open, revealing a study, frozen in time, a desk strewn with papers, a fireplace, cold and dark, and shelves heavy with leather-bound books. The guests spread out, searching for the journal. It was Madame Vivian who found it, tucked behind a portrait of a stern man in Victorian attire, Lord Blackthorn, presumably. The journal was bound in cracked leather, its pages yellowed, but intact. Poirot opened it, revealing entries in a precise, angular hand. The 12th of March, 1905. The key is safe, but they are closing in. I cannot trust even those closest to me. The truth must remain hidden, lest it destroy us all. The 15th of March, 1905. The vault is secure, but the cost was too great. E betrayed me. K betrayed me, and now the blood is on my hands. The final entry was incomplete, smeared with ink, as if written in haste. They know. The key, Isa's scream, shattered the silence coming from the hall. The guests rushed out to find the butler crumpled on the floor, a candelabrum overturned beside him. His eyes were wide with fear, and he whispered, "The shadow." It moved before fainting. Poirot knelt beside him, checking his pulse. He lives, but he is terrified. Something or someone is watching us. The guests' faces were pale, their earlier bravado gone. Lady Beatrice clutched the journal, her knuckles white. "What does this mean, Monsieur Poirot? Who is E?" Poirot stood, his expression calm but resolute. "It means, madame, that the game is more dangerous than I anticipated. The journal is but the first clue in a maze of motives. We are not merely guests, we are suspects in a mystery that began 20 years ago." He turned to the group, his voice steady. "Tonight, we rest, but tomorrow, we unravel this enigma. The secret key is no myth, and I, Hercule Poirot, shall find it." As the guests dispersed to their rooms, Poirot lingered, his eyes scanning the shadowed hall. The journal's words echoed in his mind: betrayal, blood, a hidden truth. The little gray cells were already at work, weaving the threads of this puzzle into a pattern only he could see. Blackthorn Manor held its secrets tightly, but Poirot was no stranger to locked doors. The game had begun, and he would not rest until the truth was laid bare. Chapter 2. Shadows of the past. The storm arrived with the subtlety of a sledgehammer, its first gusts rattling the ancient windows of Blackthorn Manor as Hercule Poirot sipped his tisane in the drawing-room. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and wax, the kind of atmosphere that clung to secrets like damp to stone. The other guests, an eclectic assembly thrown together by the cryptic invitation, shifted uneasily in their seats, their eyes darting between the flickering firelight in the shadowed corners of the cavernous room. The host's absence, now stretching into the second hour of the evening, had begun to fray nerves, and Poirot's sharp gaze noted every twitch, every glance, every carefully chosen word. The retired Colonel Mortimer Hargrove, a man whose posture suggested he still marched to the drum of military discipline, stood by the hearth, his mustache bristling as he recounted the tale of his campaigns in India. His voice, a gravelly bark, carried the weight of authority, but Poirot detected a tremor of unease beneath it. Across the room, Madame Vivienne Duval, a glamorous actress whose face had once adorned London's theatre posters, reclined on a velvet chaise, her crimson gown a stark contrast to the muted greens and browns of the manor's decor. She toyed with a pearl necklace, her laughter light but her eyes guarded. Mr. Clarence Whitby, the nervous historian, sat hunched over a notebook, scribbling furiously, as if the act of writing could shield him from the growing tension. And Lady Beatrice Langley, the sharp-tongued heiress, paced near the tall windows, her emerald earrings catching the candlelight as she muttered about the inconvenience of the storm. Poirot, ever the observer, sipped his tisane, the delicate aroma of chamomile, grounding him amid the unease. The cryptic letter, with its ornate key symbol, lay folded in his pocket, its words etched in his mind. A secret buried in time awaits your discerning eye, Monsieur Poirot. Blackthorn Manor holds the truth of a crime forgotten, but not forgiven. The journal discovered, after the scream and ear-splitting cry from Madame Vivienne, who had stumbled upon it in the West Wing's locked room, had only deepened the mystery. Its pages, filled with Lord Reginald Blackthorn's spidery handwriting, spoke of betrayal, a hidden fortune, and a secret key that promised to unlock more than just a door. Poirot's little gray cells hummed with anticipation. The journal's final entry, dated 20 years prior, pointed to one of the guests as a keeper of secrets, and Poirot was determined to unmask them. Mise Amos, Poirot began, setting his cup down with a deliberate clink. We are gathered here, not by chance, but by design. The journal suggests a connection to Lord Blackthorn. I propose, we share what we know of him. Truth, like a fine wine, must be poured carefully, but poured it must be. The room fell silent, save for the howl of the wind outside. Colonel Hargrove cleared his throat, his eyes narrowing. Blackthorn was a peculiar sort. Met him once, in '03, at a regimental dinner. Obsessed with relics, always yammering about some artifact he'd found in Egypt. Never trusted him. Too secretive. Secretive, Lady Beatrice snapped, pausing, her pacing. That's rich, coming from a man who spent 20 years dodging questions about his own past. What was it, Colonel? A court-martial you'd rather we forget? Hargrove's face reddened, but before he could retort, Madame Vivienne interjected, her voice smooth as silk. Oh, Beatrice, darling, let's not throw stones in glass houses. Your family's fortune vanished with Blackthorn, didn't it? Perhaps you're here to claw it back. Lady Beatrice's lips tightened, but she said nothing, her fingers brushing the emerald at her ear. Poirot noted the exchange, his mustache twitching slightly. Monsieur Clarence, he said, turning to the historian, you are a scholar of history, Nan. What do you know of Lord Blackthorn's obsessions? Clarence's pen froze mid-scribble, his glasses slipping down his nose. I studied his papers at Oxford," he stammered. Lord Blackthorn was a collector of rare artifacts. He believed in a legend, the secret key, said to unlock a vault containing a fortune. Not just gold, mind you documents, maps, things that could change history. He was paranoid, though, thought someone was after it. That's why he vanished. Or so the rumors go. Vanished. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Or was he made to vanish, monsieur? A man does not abandon his home without reason. The historian paled, his hands trembling. I only know what the archives say. He was last seen in this manor, autumn of 1905. No trace after that. Some say he fled to the continent. Others, well, they say he never left. A crack of thunder punctuated Clarence's words, and the lights flickered, casting long shadows across the room. Madame Vivian shivered, pulling her shawl tighter. This place gives me the creeps. All these locked doors in hidden rooms. It's like a tomb. Or a puzzle, Poirot said softly, rising from his chair. And puzzles, madame, are meant to be solved. Come, let us explore this manor. The journal speaks of secrets hidden in its walls. Perhaps we shall find them. The group hesitated, but Poirot's calm authority was magnetic. They followed him through the manor's labyrinthine corridors, the storm's fury growing outside. The west wing, where the journal had been found, was a maze of locked doors and faded tapestries. Poirot's keen eyes scanned every detail, the worn edges of a rug, the faint scratches on a doorframe, the peculiar alignment of a portrait of Lord Blackthorn himself, his stern gaze seeming to follow them. At the end of the corridor, a massive oak bookshelf loomed, its shelves sagging under the weight of dusty tomes. Poirot paused, his fingers brushing the spine of a leather-bound volume titled Ars Arcana. Curious, he murmured, pulling the book. A low click echoed, and the bookshelf shuddered, sliding aside to reveal a narrow passage cloaked in darkness. Good heavens! Clarence gasped, clutching his notebook. A secret passage. Indeed, Poirot said, his voice calm but his eyes alight with excitement. Let us see where it leads. The passage was cramped, the air thick with the musty scent of neglect. Cobwebs clung to the stone walls, and the group's footsteps echoed in the confined space. Poirot led the way, a small flashlight from his pocket casting a thin beam ahead. The passage twisted downward, ending at a heavy iron door, its surface etched with an intricate design of interlocking keys. Locked, of course, Lady Beatrice muttered, her tone dripping with impatience. What now, Monsieur Poirot? Poirot examined the door, his fingers tracing the key pattern. Patience, madame. The journal spoke of a map, did it not? Perhaps the answer lies in Lord Blackthorn's study. The group retraced their steps, emerging into a dusty study, hidden behind the bookshelf. The room was a time capsule, its desk littered with yellowed papers, an inkwell long dried, and a faded map of the estate pinned to the wall. Poirot's attention fixed on the desk, where a series of cryptic symbols were carved into the wood, a circle bisected by a line, a crescent moon, and a star within a square. A code, Poirot said, his voice almost reverent. Lord Blackthorn was a man of riddles. These symbols are not random. Clarence, emboldened by the discovery, stepped forward. I have seen these before, he said, his voice steadier now, in Blackthorn's journals at Oxford. The circle and line represent direction north, I think. The crescent is time, perhaps a phase of the moon. The star, it's a marker, a place of significance. Poirot nodded, his mind racing. And where, monsieur, would such a marker lead us? Clarence hesitated, then pointed to the map on the wall, the estate's chapel. It's marked with a star. Blackthorn was obsessed with it, said. It was built on sacred ground. The group exchanged glances, the weight of the discovery settling over them. The storm outside roared, lightning illuminating the study in stark white flashes. Poirot folded the map carefully, tucking it into his coat. "To the chapel, then," he said. "But first, let us return to the drawing room. The night grows late, and the storm will not permit travel. We must prepare." Back in the drawing room, the tension was palpable. The guests sat in uneasy silence, the fire now reduced to glowing embers. Poirot stood by the hearth, his hands clasped behind his back. "Mies, Amos, the map points to the chapel, but I sense we are not alone in this hunt. The journal's words suggest one among us knows more than they admit. I ask again, what is your connection to Lord Blackthorne?" The silence stretched, broken only by the crackle of the fire. Finally, Madame Vivian spoke, her voice low. "My mother worked here years ago, a maid. She left suddenly after Blackthorne disappeared. She never spoke of it, but I found letters in her things after she died. Okay? They mentioned a key, something she was sworn to protect. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "From whom, madame?" "I don't know," she said, her voice trembling. "She burned most of the letters, but she was afraid." Always looking over her shoulder, Colonel Hargrove snorted. "Sounds like guilt to me." "Maybe your mother was in on whatever happened to Blackthorne." "How dare you?" Vivian snapped, her eyes flashing. "You're the one with secrets, Colonel. What was that scandal in your regiment? Something about missing funds, wasn't it?" Hargrove's face darkened, but before he could respond, Lady Beatrice laughed, a cold, cutting sound. "Oh, this is rich. A thief, a liar, and a coward, all in one room. And you, Monsieur Clarence, skulking about like a rat. What are you hiding?" Clarence flinched, his glasses fogging slightly. I'm just a scholar. I came here to study Blackthorne's collection, that's all." "Enough." Poirot's voice, though soft, cut through the bickering like a blade. "Accusations without evidence are but noise. We will go to the chapel at first light. Until then, I suggest you rest, but keep your doors locked. The storm may not be the only danger tonight." The guests dispersed, their footsteps echoing in the cavernous manor. Poirot remained by the fire, his mind turning over the clues. The journal, the passage, the coded map, all pieces of a puzzle that pointed to the chapel. But the guests' secrets weighed heavier still. Each had a motive, a thread tying them to Blackthorne's fate. The Colonel's past, Vivian's mother, Beatrice's lost fortune, Clarence's nervous obsession. They were all shadows of the past, converging in this storm-swept manner. As the clock struck midnight, Poirot retired to his room, locking the door behind him. He sat at the small desk, spreading the map before him. The chapel, marked with a star, seemed to pulse with promise. He traced the symbols again, his fingers lingering on the crescent moon. "Time," he murmured. "The key is not just a place, but a moment." Sleep eluded him, his mind too alive with possibilities. Storm raged on, its howl a chorus to his thoughts. By dawn, the rain had softened to a drizzle, and Poirot gathered the guests in the hall, their faces pale from a sleepless night. "To the chapel," he said, his tone resolute. "The truth awaits us." The group ventured into the misty grounds, the manor looming behind them like a silent sentinel. The chapel, half hidden by overgrown ivy, stood at the edge of the estate, its spire piercing the gray sky. Poirot pushed open the creaking door, revealing a dim interior lit by shafts of light through cracked stained glass windows. The air was heavy with the scent of damp stone and old incense. Inside, Poirot's eyes scanned the pews, the altar, the faded frescoes. "The map led us here," he said, his voice echoing. "But where is the star?" Clarence, clutching his notebook, pointed to the altar. "There, the carving above it, 'tis a star within a square, just like the desk. Poirot approached the altar, his fingers brushing the carved stone. A faint seam suggested a hidden compartment. He pressed, and with a soft click, a panel slid open, revealing a small, dust-covered box. The group crowded closer, their breaths held. Poirot opened the box, revealing a folded parchment. He unfolded it carefully, revealing a single line. The key lies where the shadow falls at the hour of betrayal. A murmur rippled through the group. Betrayal, Lady Beatrice whispered, her eyes darting to the others. Poirot's mustache twitched. The hour of betrayal, he said, his voice steady. Okay. The map, the symbols, this message, they point to a moment in time. Lord Blackthorn's disappearance was no accident. It was a crime, and a secret key is its witness. The guests stared at him, their faces a mix of awe and fear. Poirot folded the parchment, his mind already racing toward the next clue. The chapel had whispered its secret, but the manor held more. The storm had trapped them, but Poirot's little gray cells were free, and they would unravel the maze of motives, one shadow at a time. Chapter 3. The chapels whispered. The wind howled outside Blackthorn Manor, its mournful wail weaving through the gnarled oaks that encircled the estate. The storm that had descended upon the countryside was no ordinary squall. It was a tempest of biblical proportions, with rain lashing against the manor's ancient stone walls and thunder rumbling like the judgment of an angry god. Inside, the air was thick with unease, the guests' faces illuminated by the flickering glow of oil lamps as they gathered in the grand hall. Hercule Poirot stood apart, his impeccable suit a stark contrast to the disheveled appearances of those around him. His sharp eyes scanned the group, noting every nervous twitch, every sidelong glance. The discovery of the hidden passage in the library had set them all on edge, and the coded map etched into the desk had only deepened the mystery. Poirot's mind buzzed with the precision of a Swiss watch. The map, with its intricate lines and cryptic symbols, had pointed to the forgotten chapel on the estate's grounds. It was a tantalizing clue, one that promised to unravel the enigma of Lord Reginald Blackthorn's disappearance 20 years prior. But Poirot knew better than to rush headlong into the unknown. The guest, Colonel Mortimer Hargreaves, Madame Vivian Leclerc, Mr. Clarence Whitby, and Lady Beatrice Dunworth were a volatile mix, each harboring secrets that shimmered just beneath the surface. The scream from the previous night, followed by the discovery of the journal hinting at a concealed murder, had only heightened their suspicions of one another. Poirot's task was to guide them through this maze of motives, without letting their fears or their greed derail the investigation. Mise, Amos, Poirot said, his voice cutting through the tension like a polished blade. We must venture to the chapel. The map is clear. It is there that the next piece of this puzzle awaits. But we must proceed with caution. The storm is fierce, and the path is treacherous. Colonel Hargreaves, a man whose weathered face bore the scars of countless campaigns, straightened his broad shoulders. I've marched through worse than this in the Punjab, he declared, his voice gruff but steady. If there's a clue in that chapel, I'll not let a bit of rain stop us. Madame Vivian, the glamorous actress whose auburn curls seemed to defy the damp air, clutched her fur stole tightly. This is madness, she murmured, her French accent lending a melodious lilt to her unease. Why would anyone hide something in a crumbling old chapel? Surely this is some cruel jest. Mr. Clarence Whitby, the nervous historian, adjusted his spectacles, his hands trembling slightly. No jest, madame, he stammered. Lord Blackthorn was known for his eccentricities. The chapel was his private sanctuary, a place where he conducted unusual studies. If the map points there, it's no coincidence. Lady Beatrice, the sharp-tongued heiress, snorted derisively. Unusual studies? It's more like hiding his ill-gotten gains from my family. My father lost everything because of Blackthorn's schemes. If there's a fortune in that chapel, it belongs to me by right." Poirot raised a hand, silencing the brewing argument. "Enough, s'il vous plaît. Speculation will not serve us. We go to the chapel together, as a group. The truth, it hides in the details, and Poirot, he will find it." With reluctant nods, the guests gathered their coats and umbrellas, though the latter seemed futile against the deluge outside. Poirot led the way, his small, precise steps navigating the manor's winding corridors until they reached the heavy oak door that opened onto the grounds. The storm greeted them with a blast of icy wind, and the group huddled together as they stepped into the maelstrom. The path to the chapel was a muddy quagmire, overgrown with brambles that clawed at their ankles. Lightning illuminated the landscape, in stark, fleeting flashes, revealing the chapel's silhouette in the distance a squat, Gothic structure, half swallowed by ivy in time. Its stained glass windows, though cracked and faded, glinted ominously under the storm's wrath. Poirot's keen eyes noted the uneven terrain, the way the path seemed deliberately obscured, as if to deter the uninvited. He filed this observation away, his mind already weaving a tapestry of possibilities. As they approached the chapel's arched entrance, the heavy iron door groaned under Colonel Hargreaves' push. The interior was a cavern of shadows, the air thick with the musty scent of decay and old incense. The pews, warped by years of neglect, stood in uneven rows, and the altar at the far end was draped in a tattered cloth. Poirot's gaze swept the room, noting the faded frescoes on the wall scenes of saints and sinners, their faces worn two ghostly outlines. "This place gives me the creeps," Madame Vivian whispered, her voice echoing faintly in the vaulted ceiling. "Courage," Madame Poirot said, his tone calm but firm. "The chapel, it holds secrets, but they will not harm us if we are vigilant." Mr. Clarence, clutching a leather-bound notebook, began scribbling furiously. "The architecture. Early Gothic, I'd say. Lord Blackthorn must have used this place for more than prayer. There are rumors he dabbled in the occult. You know, cult nonsense." Lady Beatrice snapped, her eyes glinting with impatience. "He was a swindler, not a sorcerer. Let's find this clue and be done with it." Poirot ignored their bickering, his attention drawn to the altar. The map's symbols had included a crude sketch of a cross, and the altar's position at the chapel's heart seemed deliberate to ignore. He knelt, his gloved hands brushing away layers of dust to reveal a faint seam in the stone floor. "Colonel, if you would assist," he said, gesturing to the heavy slab. Hargreaves, ever the man of action, heaved at the stone, his muscles straining until it shifted with a grinding thud. Beneath it lay a concealed compartment, its edges lined with intricate carvings of keys and vines. Inside rested a small, tarnished locket, its surface engraved with a delicate rose. Poirot lifted it carefully, his fingers tracing the clasp. "A locket," Lady Beatrice said, her voice dripping with disappointment. "This is the great secret, a trinket." Poirot's eyes narrowed as he opened the locket, revealing a miniature portrait of a young woman with striking features, high cheekbones, dark eyes, and a wistful smile. The room fell silent as Madame Vivian let out a sharp gasp, her hand flying to her mouth. That's my mother," she whispered, her voice trembling. Leclerc. She was a maid here years ago, before I was born." The revelation hung in the air like a thunderclap. The guests turned to Vivian, their expressions a mix of shock and suspicion. Colonel Hargreaves' bushy brows furrowed. "Your mother worked for Blackthorn, and you never thought to mention this?" "I didn't know it mattered," Vivian protested, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "She left the manor when I was a child. She never spoke of this place, except to say it was cursed. Cursed or not, Lady Beatrice said coldly, this makes you a suspect, madame. If your mother was involved with Blackthorn, perhaps you're here to claim more. Then, just a key. Enough. Poirot's voice was sharp, commanding attention. Accusations without evidence are like arrows shot in the dark. They hit nothing but air. Madame Vivian, tell Poirot what you know of your mother's time here. Vivian hesitated, her fingers twisting the edge of her stole. She was young, barely 18 when she worked here. She said Lord Blackthorn was kind to her, but secretive. She left abruptly, never explained why. Only learned of this place when I received the invitation. Poirot nodded, his mind racing. The locket was no mere trinket. It was a thread in the tapestry of Blackthorn's life, one that connected to Vivian's past. But before he could press further, Colonel Hargreaves cleared his throat, his voice low and deliberate. If we're airing secrets, he said, I suppose I should mention something. My military records. They might show a connection to Blackthorn. There was a scandal, you see, back in '05. I was a young officer stationed in London. Blackthorn was involved in some shady dealings, harms, shipments, bribes. My commanding officer, my father, was implicated. It nearly ruined us. The confession landed like a stone in a still pond, ripples of tension spreading through the group. Mr. Clarence's pen froze mid-scribble, and Lady Beatrice's lips curled into a sneer. So, Colonel, you're not just a guest, you're here to cover up your family's sins. Hargreaves' face reddened, his fists clenching. I'm here to find the truth, same as you, okay? My father's dead, and I've carried his shame long. Enough. The argument escalated, voices rising in a cacophony of accusations. Vivian's eyes flashed with indignation, Beatrice's words cut like knives, and Clarence stammered attempts to mediate. Poirot, however, remained silent, his gaze fixed on the chapel's shadowed corners. Something or someone had moved in the periphery of his vision. A faint rustle, barely audible over the storm, confirmed his suspicion. Silence, he barked, startling the group into stillness. We are not alone. The guests froze, their eyes darting to the darkened aisles. A sudden crash of thunder illuminated the chapel, and in that fleeting moment, Poirot glimpsed a figure, cloaked silhouettes slipping through a side door. Without hesitation, he gave chase, his nimble steps defying his age. The others followed, their footsteps echoing on the stone floor. The side door led to a narrow cloister, its walls slick with rain. The figure was gone, swallowed by the storm. But Poirot's sharp eyes caught a glimmer on the grounded torn scrap of paper, its edges singed as if hastily burned. He knelt, shielding it from the rain, and read the faint, waterlogged words. The key lies where the roses weep. A clue, Poirot murmured, his mind already dissecting the cryptic phrase. The roses. Perhaps a reference to the manor's gardens, or to the locket's engraving. We must return to the manor and examine this further. The guests, soaked and shivering, nodded in agreement, though their faces betrayed their unease. The chapel had yielded its secret, but it had also deepened the mystery. Who was the shadowy figure? Why had they fled? And what did the locaton Vivian's mother have to do with Blackthorn's fate? Back at the manor, the group gathered. In the library, the fire casting long shadows across the room. Poirot held the torn letter up to the light, his fingers tracing the faded ink. This message, he said, it is deliberate. Someone wishes us to find the secret key, but they also wish to remain unseen. The roses weep. A poetic turn, Nan. The gardens of Blackthorn Manor are renowned for their rose arbors. Tomorrow we shall explore them. But what of the locket? Vivian asked, her voice barely above a whisper. And why my mother's face? What does it mean? Poirot's eyes softened, though his tone remained firm. madame, is a question we shall answer in time. For now, we rest. The storm will not abate tonight. In Poirot's little gray cells, they require repose to work their magic. As the guests dispersed to their rooms, Poirot lingered by the fire, the locket in his hand. The portrait of Marie Leclerc stared back at him, her eyes holding a secret that refused to yield. The chapel had whispered its first clue, but the maze of motives was far from solved. Tomorrow, the gardens awaited, and with them, the next piece of Blackthorn's enigmatic legacy. The night passed uneasily, the storm's fury rattling the manor's windows. By morning, the rain had softened to a drizzle, leaving the grounds sodden but navigable. Poirot gathered the guests in the grand hall, their faces a mix of curiosity and dread. The torn letter lay on the table before them, its cryptic message, a beacon in the fog of uncertainty. "The roses weep," Poirot repeated, his voice measured. "In the gardens we shall find the next clue. But we must be vigilant. The figure in the chapel was no phantom, it was someone who knows more than they wish to reveal." Colonel Hargreaves adjusted his cap, his jaw set. "Lest, if there's a skulker about, I'll flush them out." Mung plays games with Mortimer Hargreaves. Lady Beatrice rolled her eyes. "Your bravado is charming, Colonel, but it's brains we need, not brawn." "Poirot, what's your plan?" Poirot's mustache twitched, a faint smile playing at his lips. "My plan, Lady Beatrice, is to observe, to listen, and to think. The gardens are vast, a labyrinth of paths and statues. We shall explore them systematically, and Poirot, he shall uncover what lies hidden." The group set out, their boots sinking into the muddy earth. The gardens of Blackthorn Manor were a marvel, even in their neglect. Rose arbors arched overhead, their blooms heavy with rain, their thorns glinting like tiny daggers. Stone statues, weathered by time, stood sentinel along the paths, their faces frozen in expressions of sorrow or triumph. Poirot's eyes darted from one to another, searching for anything out of place. It was Mr. Clarence who noticed it first. "There," he cried, pointing to a statue of a weeping angel, its hands cupped around a stone rose. The inscription is different from the others." Poirot approached, his gaze fixed on the pedestal. Carved into the stone were the words, "Where tears fall, the truth is born." He knelt, his fingers brushing the base, and felt a faint click. The pedestal shifted, revealing a hollow compartment within. Inside lay a small, leather-bound book, its pages yellowed but intact. "A diary," Poirot said, lifting it carefully. "Or perhaps something more. Let us return to the manor and examine it." The guests crowded around as Poirot opened the book, its pages filled with elegant, looping handwriting. The entries were dated 20 years prior, written by none other than Lord Blackthorn himself. They spoke of a woman Marie Leclerc's loyalty had earned his trust, and of a secret he could not share, even with her. The final entry was chilling. "The key is safe, but the wolves are at the door. If I fall, let the roses guard my truth." Vivian's breath caught, her hand trembling as she reached for the book. My mother, she knew something. She was part of this. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Oui, madame, and this diary, it confirms that the secret key is more than a treasure. It is a truth that someone has killed to protect. The roses weep, and we are close to their tears." As the group returned to the manor, the weight of the discovery settled over them. The chapel had whispered its secrets, but the gardens held the next key to the puzzle. Poirot's mind churned, piecing together the fragments of Blackthorn's life. The locket, the diary, and the shadowy figure who seemed to watch their every move. The maze of motives was growing clearer, but the danger was far from over. Chapter 4. The gardens riddled the air at Blackthorn. manor was thick with anticipation as Hercule Poirot led the eclectic group of guests through the heavy oak doors and into the sprawling gardens. The storm from the previous night had left, the grounds sodden, the grass glistening under a weak morning sun that struggled to pierce the lingering clouds. The gardens, once the pride of Lord Reginald Blackthorne, had grown wild and untamed in the 2 decades since his disappearance. Their beauty now a haunting mix of grandeur and decay. Hedges towered like green monoliths, their edges blurred by neglect, while ivy snaked over stone statues, wrapping them in a verdant shroud. The paths, once meticulously laid, were now cracked and overtaken by moss, leading into a labyrinthine maze that seemed to pulse with secrets. Poirot, his polished shoes sinking slightly into the damp earth, paused at the garden's edge, his sharp eyes scanning the scene. His black suit, immaculate as always, seemed out of place amidst the wild greenery, yet his composure was unshaken. The guests trailed behind him, their faces a mix of curiosity and unease. Sir retired Colonel Archibald Ramsay, his posture rigid, despite the uneven ground, clutched his cane tightly, his weathered face betraying a flicker of recognition as he surveyed the garden. Madame Vivian Leroux, the glamorous actress, adjusted her wide-brimmed hat, the crimson lips pursed as she avoided the puddles that threatened her silk dress. Mr. Clarence Withers, the nervous historian, clutched a battered notebook, his fingers trembling as he scribbled observations, his eyes darting toward the shadows. Lady Beatrice Haverford, the sharp-tongued heiress, strode forward with a determined glint in her emerald eyes, her tailored coat flapping as she scanned the maze for any hint of the fortune she so desperately sought. This garden, Poirot began, his voice clear and measured, is no mere ornament. It is a puzzle, mise Amos, a riddle carved into the very earth by Lord Blackthorne himself. The secret key, I believe, lies within its twists and turns, guarded by the ingenuity of a man who loved his secrets as much as his wealth. The group murmured, their eyes drawn to the maze's entrance, where 2 stone lions flanked a narrow path, their weathered faces staring blankly into the distance. The colonel cleared his throat, his voice gruff. Blackthorne was a cunning devil, I'll give him that. I remember these gardens from years ago, full of traps and tricks. He'd host parties here, lead guests in circles, just to watch them squirm. Madame Vivian raised an eyebrow, her tone teasing. Sounds like a man after your own heart, Colonel. Did you ever get lost in his games? The colonel's jaw tightened, but he didn't rise to the bait. I knew my way around. Unlike some, Lady Beatrice snorted, her voice dripping with disdain. Spare us, Colonel. If you knew so much, why are you here chasing shadows like the rest of us? Enough, Poirot interjected, raising a hand. The past holds its secrets, but the present demands our focus. The clue from the Chipotle-torn letter? We spoke of the heart of the green labyrinth, where stone guards the truth. We must find this heart. Clarence, flipping through his notebook, stammered, I've read about Blackthorne's gardens. He was obsessed with classical mythology. This maze might be designed like the labyrinth of Crete, with a central pointer metaphorical minotaur. Perhaps Poirot's mustache twitched with approval. A fine observation, Monsieur Clarence. Talia, but we shall not face a monster of flesh and bone, but one of intellect. Let us proceed. The group entered the maze, the hedges closing around them like the walls of a verdant prison. The air grew cooler, the scent of wet earth and decaying leaves heavy. The paths twisted and turned, splitting into dead ends and looping back unexpectedly. Poirot moved with purpose, his eyes scanning every detail, the angle of a branch, the alignment of a stone, the faint etchings on a crumbling fountain. The guests followed, their footsteps muffled by the damp ground, their voices hushed as if the garden itself demanded silence. After several minutes of winding through the maze, they reached a small clearing where a statue of Apollo stood, his lyre raised as if frozen mid-song. The statue's base was inscribed with faded Latin, per aspera ad astra, through hardships to the stars. Poirot knelt, his gloved fingers tracing the letters. A clue, perhaps, he murmured, but not the heart of the labyrinth. Must go deeper. Lady Beatrice, impatient, pushed past him. This is taking too long. If there's a fortune here, it won't be found dawdling over poetry. She strode toward a fork in the path, choosing the left without hesitation. Madame, Poirot called, his tone sharp. The maze rewards patience, not haste. Follow me, if you please. Beatrice hesitated, her pride warring with the realization that Poirot's intellect was their best guide. Grudgingly, she fell back into line. The group pressed on, the maze growing denser, the hedges taller, until they reached another clearing. Here, a circle of statues, 7 in all, formed a ring around a dry fountain, its basin cracked and filled with leaves. Each statue depicted a figure from mythology: Athena with her owl, Hermes with his winged sandals, Demeter with her sheaf of wheat, and others, their stone faces worn but regal. Poirot circled the fountain, his eyes narrowing. 7 statues, 7 paths leading from this clearing. One must lead to the heart. But which? Clarence, his voice barely above a whisper, pointed to the statue of Athena. She's the goddess of wisdom. If Blackthorn designed this maze, he'd favor intellect over chance, perhaps her path. The colonel scoffed. Or Hermes, the trickster. Blackthorn loved his games. Madame Vivian, studying the statues, noticed a faint discrepancy. Look at Demeter. Her cheveux tilted slightly, not aligned with the others. Could that mean something? Poirot's eyes gleamed. Madame Vivian, your eye for detail does you credit. Let us investigate. He approached the statue of Demeter, running his hands along the base. The stone was cold and damp, but as he pressed against the sheath, a faint click echoed. The base shifted, revealing a hollow compartment. The guests gasped, crowding closer as Poirot reached inside and withdrew a small brass key, its surface engraved with a single word: Veritas Truth. A key, Lady Beatrice exclaimed, her eyes alight with greed. Is this it? The secret key? Poirot held the key aloft, examining it in the dim light. Nan, Madame, this is a decoy, a test. The true secret key would not be so easily found. But this key may unlock the next step. Before anyone could respond, Clarence, his face pale, lunged forward, snatching the key from Poirot's hand. I need to see it, he stammered, backing away. It might be tied to Blackthorn's journals. Clarence, the colonel barked, stepping forward. Give it back, man. But Clarence, his nerves frayed, turned and bolted down one of the paths, disappearing into the maze. The group erupted into chaos, voices overlapping as they argued over what to do. Poirot, however, remained calm, his eyes tracking the path Clarence had taken. He will not go far, he said. The maze will bring him back. Come, we follow. The pursuit was tense, the group weaving through the labyrinth as Clarence's footsteps echoed ahead. The paths seemed to shift, the hedges closing in, but Poirot's keen sense of direction kept them on track. After several minutes, they found Clarence in another clearing. Slumped against a hedge, the brass key clutched in his trembling hand. He looked up, his face a mask of fear. I didn't mean to run. I thought it might prove my theory about Blackthorn's cipher. Poirot knelt beside him, his voice gentle but firm. Sir Clarence, your enthusiasm is admirable, but secrets are not won by theft. Hand me the key. Clarence hesitated, then surrendered it. Poirot stood, turning to the group. This clearing is no accident. Connor the statue, this time of Artemis, goddess of the hunt. At her feet, a stone box, a box half buried in the earth, was unremarkable, save for a small keyhole. Poirot inserted the brass key, and with a soft grind, the lid opened, revealing a folded parchment. He unfolded it carefully, revealing a poem written in elegant script, in halls of light where music dwells. The heart of truth in silence swells. Press keys of black and white in tune to find the star beneath the moon. Poirot's eyes sparkled. The ballroom, Mise Amos. The poem speaks of music and keys, black and white, like a piano. The next clue awaits us there. The group, energized by the discovery, followed Poirot back through the maze, there earlier, tensions forgotten in the thrill of the chase. The return journey was quicker, as if the maze itself had relented, its paths straightening under Poirot's command. As they emerged into the open garden, the manor loomed before them, its windows dark and watchful. Inside, the ballroom was a cavern of faded opulence, its chandeliers swaying gently in the draught. A grand piano stood at the far end, its surface dulled by dust, but its presence commanding. Poirot approached it, his fingers brushing the keys. "The poem speaks of a tune," he said. "We must find the melody that unlocks the next piece of this puzzle." Madame Vivienne, her actress's instincts stirred, stepped forward. "I know a bit about music. Let me try." She sat at the piano, her fingers hesitant at first, then gaining confidence as she played a simple melody. The notes echoed through the room, but nothing happened. "Nan," Madame Poirot said, shaking his head. "The poem is precise, right? It speaks of black and white keys, in tune. Perhaps a specific sequence." Clarence, still shaken but eager to redeem himself, flipped through his notebook. Blackthorne loved Bach. There's a reference in his journals to the well-tempered clavier. Could it be one of those preludes? Poirot nodded. "It's an excellent thought." "Madame Vivienne, do you know Bach's prelude in C major?" She smiled, a rare moment of warmth. "I do." She began to play, the notes cascading through the ballroom, their clarity cutting through the musty air. As the final chord rang out, a faint click sounded from the piano's base. The panel slid open, revealing a small velvet pouch. Poirot retrieved it, opening it to reveal a star-shaped device, its surface etched with tiny constellations. The guests crowded closer, their excitement palpable. "Is that the key?" Lady Beatrice demanded. "Nan," Poirot said, holding the device to the light. "Okay, but it is a map, a guide to the true key. Observe, when held to the light, it projects a pattern. We must return to the ballroom tonight, under moonlight, to see its secrets." As the group dispersed, their minds buzzing with the day's discoveries, Poirot lingered by the piano, his thoughts racing. The maze had tested them, the key had challenged them, and now the ballroom held the promise of revelation. But the true riddle, he knew, was not in the garden or the piano, but in the hearts of the guests, each hiding their own motives, their own secrets, in this maze of human desires. Chapter 5. The ballroom's secret. The storm that had trapped the guests at Blackthorn Manor raged on, its howling winds rattling the ancient windows as Hercule Poirot led the group into the grand ballroom. The room was a relic of opulence, its high ceilings adorned with chandeliers that hung like forgotten constellations, their crystals cloaked in cobwebs that swayed faintly in the draught. The parquet floor, once polished to a mere sheen, was now dulled by dust and the heavy velvet. Curtains sagged with the weight of years. At the far end of the room stood a grand piano, its ebony surface catching the flicker of the guests' lanterns, casting long shadows that danced like specters across the walls. Poirot's gray cells were alight with anticipation. The coded map from the hidden study, the locket from the chapel, the decoy key from the garden. Each clue had drawn him closer to the elusive secret key. the artifact that promised to unlock the truth behind Lord Reginald Blackthorne's disappearance. The guests trailed behind him, their faces a mix of curiosity, suspicion, and barely concealed greed. The retired Colonel Archibald Trent, his posture rigid as ever, clutched his cane with a grip that betrayed his unease. Madame Vivienne Leroux, the glamorous actress, moved with a theatrical grace, her eyes darting nervously as if expecting a stage cue. Mr. Clarence Winthrop, the nervous historian, clutched a tattered notebook, muttering to himself about ancient artifacts. Lady Beatrice Harrel, the sharp-tongued heiress, strode with an air of entitlement, her emerald necklace glinting as if to assert her claim to whatever fortune awaited. Monsieur Poirot, Lady Beatrice said, her voice cutting through the silence. Like a blade, this ballroom is a mausoleum. Surely you don't expect to find anything of value in this crypt. Poirot turned, his mustache twitching with a faint smile. Madame, the most valuable treasures are often hidden in plain sight, obscured by the dust of neglect. The ballroom, it is not merely a roomette, is a stage, and every stage holds its secrets. The Colonel snorted, tapping his cane against the floor. Stage or not, I've seen enough of this manor's tricks. Hidden passages, coded maps. What's next? A ghost to guide us? Perhaps, Colonel Poirot replied, his eyes gleaming. But for now, we shall let the clues guide us. The poem from the Garden's decoy kit spoke of music. Did it? Not in the heart of the dance, where notes align. The secret waits for those who divine. The heart of the dance is here, in this ballroom, and I suspect the grand piano holds the key, quite literally. The group gathered around the piano, its presence commanding despite its age. The keys were yellowed, some chipped, but the instrument retained an air of majesty. Poirot ran a gloved finger along its edge, inspecting it with the precision of a jeweler. This piano, he mused, it is not merely an instrument. It is a puzzle, a lock that requires the right melody to open. Madame Vivienne raised an eyebrow, her scarlet lips curling. Melody, Monsieur Poirot. I've played many roles, but never a locksmith. Do you expect us to serenade the furniture? It's not serenade, Madame Poirot said, but to play, with purpose. The poem suggests a sequence of notes, a specific tune that will reveal what is hidden. We must find it. Mr. Clarence, his hands trembling, opened his notebook. I recall reading about Lord Blackthorne's love for music. He was said to have composed a piece for his beloved a waltz, I believe. Could that be the melody? Poirot's eyes narrowed. A waltz, you say? Most interesting, Monsieur Clarence. Did this waltz have a name? The historian fumbled through his notes, his glasses slipping down his nose. Yes. It was called the Starlit Waltz. Supposedly, it was inspired by a night he spent with someone special, under the stars. Madame Vivienne's expression faltered, her hand drifting to the locket she now wore, the one found in the chapel. My mother, she whispered, almost to herself. She spoke of a waltz, once. She said it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever heard. The group exchanged glances, the air growing thick with unspoken questions. Poirot, however, remained focused. Then we shall attempt this starlit waltz. Madame Vivienne, you are a performer. Do you know this piece? She hesitated, her fingers brushing the locket. I might. My mother taught me a melody when I was a child, but I never knew its name. It was haunting, full of longing. I could try to play it. Poirot gestured to the piano. S'il vous plaît, madame. Let us see if your memory holds the key. Vivienne approached the piano, her movements slow, almost reluctant. She sat on the dusty bench, her fingers hovering over the keys. The guests held their breath as she began to play, the notes tentative at first, then growing stronger, weaving a melody that was both mournful and ethereal. The ballroom seemed to come alive, the chandeliers trembling faintly as if stirred by the music. Poirot watched intently, his head tilted, analyzing each note as the final chord rang out. A soft click echoed from within the piano. The group gasped, and Poirot stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with triumph. He pressed a panel on the piano's side, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside lay a velvet pouch, its surface embroidered with a star pattern. He lifted it carefully, feeling the weight of something solid within. "The next clue," Poirot announced, opening the pouch to reveal a strange, star-shaped device, its edges etched with intricate symbols. It was neither a key nor a tool in the traditional sense, but its craftsmanship suggested purpose. Mr. Clarence's eyes widened. That's a celestial projector. I've read about such devices used in the 19th century to map constellations onto ceilings for navigation or rituals. It's a map, Monsieur Poirot. A map to the secret key. The guests crowded closer, their excitement palpable, but the historian's sudden panic caught Poirot's attention. Clarence's face had gone pale, his hands clutching his notebook as if it were a lifeline. "Monsieur Clarence," Poirot said, his voice calm but probing, "you seem distressed. Is there something about this device that troubles you?" "I know. It's just," Clarence stammered, his eyes darting to the others. "It's valuable, that's all. If it's a map, it could lead us to the key and the fortune." "Lady," Beatrice scoffed, "fortune. All we found are trinkets and riddles. If this key exists, it had better be worth the trouble." The colonel, however, was studying the device in Poirot's hands. "A projector, you say? Dan, it needs light to work. There's no electricity in this blasted manor, but those chandeliers, some of them, still have candles. If we light them, perhaps we can see what this thing reveals." Poirot nodded, impressed by the colonel's practicality. "It's an excellent suggestion, Colonel. Let us illuminate the ballroom and see what secrets the stars reveal." The group set to work, climbing precarious ladders to light the candles in the chandeliers. The task was arduous, the air thick with dust and the faint smell of wax. Madame Vivian, ever the actress, made a show of her efforts, while Lady Beatrice complained about the indignity of manual labor. Clarence, meanwhile, hovered near Poirot, his nervous energy palpable. As the final candle flickered to life, the ballroom glowed with a warm, golden light, casting intricate shadows across the ceiling. Poirot held the star-shaped device aloft, aligning it with the chandelier's glow. A beam of light shot through the device, projecting a constellation of stars onto the ceiling, a dazzling array of points that formed a pattern resembling a key. The guests gasped, their eyes fixed on the projection. "It's beautiful," Vivian whispered, her voice tinged with awe. "But what does it mean?" Poirot's mind raced, piecing together the clues. The constellation, it is not merely decorative. It is a map, as Monsieur Clarence suggested. The key shape points to a specific location in this room. We must find where it aligns. He moved through the ballroom, holding the device steady, watching as the projected stars shifted across the walls and ceiling. The guests followed, their lanterns casting additional light, creating a kaleidoscope of shadows. Finally, the key-shaped constellation aligned perfectly with a section of the wall near the fireplace, where a faded mural depicted a night sky. "There," Poirot said, pointing to a panel in the wall. "The secret lies there." The colonel, ever eager for action, strode forward and pressed the panel, clicked, and slid aside, revealing a small alcove containing a leather-bound notebook. Poirot retrieved it, his gloved hands careful not to disturb the fragile pages. The notebook was filled with sketches of constellations, mathematical calculations, and cryptic notes in Lord Blackthorn's hand. "This," Poirot said, "is no ordinary notebook. It is a guide to the secret key's final hiding place. But we must proceed with caution. These clues are designed to mislead as much as to reveal." Before he could elaborate, a sudden crack split the air, and the ballroom plunged into darkness. The chandeliers flickered out, and a chorus of gasps and shouts filled the room. "What the devil?" the colonel began, but his words were cut off by a woman screamed. "Lady Beatrice, someone grabbed me," she cried. "I felt a hand in the dark." Poirot's voice cut through the chaos, calm and commanding. "Remain where you are, Mies Amos. Do not move until we restore the light." The guests fumbled for their lanterns, relighting them one by one. As the ballroom glowed once more, they saw Lady Beatrice clutching her arm, her face pale. "It was deliberate," she hissed. "Someone in this room is trying to sabotage us. Or perhaps," Poirot said, his eyes scanning the group, "someone wishes to claim the secret key for themselves." The tension was palpable, each guest eyeing the others with suspicion. Mr. Clarence, his hands shaking, clutched the notebook Poirot had set down. "We should destroy this," he blurted. "It's too dangerous. If the key is tied to Blackthorn's enemies, we're all at risk." "Nonsense," Lady Beatrice snapped. "You're just afraid of what we'll find. That fortune belongs to my family. It's all right." Madame Vivian stepped forward, her voice soft but firm. "Enough bickering. Sieur Poirot, what does the notebook tell us?" Poirot opened the notebook, his eyes scanning the pages. "It speaks of a final alignment, a moment when the stars above the manor align with the constellation projected by the device. This alignment, it seems, will reveal the key's true hiding place. But we must wait for the right moment, and we must be vigilant. Someone among us may not wish for the truth to be revealed." Guests exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of Poirot's words settling over them. The ballroom, once a place of elegance and celebration, now felt like a trap, its shadows hiding secrets as dark as the storm outside. Poirot, however, stood undaunted, the star-shaped device in his hand, a beacon of hope and a challenge to his little gray cells. As the group prepared to leave the ballroom, Poirot paused, his gaze lingering on the piano. "One final thing," he said, turning to the guests. The melody Madame Vivian played it was not just a key to the compartment. It was a message, a reminder of the heart that drove Lord Blackthorn to create this puzzle. Hey, we must not forget the human element in this maze of motives. With a notebook and device in hand, Poirot led the group back into the manor's darkened halls, the storm's roar a constant reminder of their isolation. The secret key was closer than ever, but so too was the danger lurking in the shadows of Blackthorn Manor. Chapter 6. The clock towers pulsed. The storm that had battered Blackthorn Manor through the night had subsided by dawn, leaving a damp chill that clung to the bones. Hercule Poirot, ever immaculate in his pressed suit and polished shoes, stood at the base of the manor's clock tower, his sharp eyes scanning the weathered stone structure that loomed like a sentinel over the estate. The tower, with its ivy-choked walls and Gothic spire, seemed to pulse with secrets, its massive clock face frozen at 10 minutes to midnight, as if time itself had paused to guard the manor's mysteries. The air was thick with anticipation. The guests huddled behind Poirot, their faces a mix of awe and unease after the revelations in the ballroom. The star-shaped device, still clutched in Poirot's gloved hand, had cast its constellation pattern onto the ballroom ceiling, revealing a hidden panel with a cryptic note. "The heart of time beats where shadows fall. Set the hour, and the truth will call." Poirot had deduced that the heart of time could only refer to the clock tower, the manor's most prominent feature, its ticking mechanism, a relic of Lord Reginald Blackthorn's obsession with precision. The note's mention of setting the hour suggested a puzzle tied to the clock itself, and Poirot's little gray cells were already humming with possibilities. "Mon Dieu, this place, it has the air of a mausoleum," Poirot murmured, adjusting his mustache as he tilted his head to study the tower's iron-bound door. but even mausoleums, they whispered their secrets to those who listen. The group behind him shifted uneasily. Colonel Mortimer, his weathered face set in a scowl, gripped his walking stick as if it were a bayonet. "I don't like this, Poirot," he growled, his voice rough from years of barking orders. "Feels like we're being led into a trap. Blackthorn was a cunning devil. Wouldn't put it past him to rig this whole place to collapse on us." Madame Vivian, the actress, clutched her fur stole tighter, her wide eyes darting to the tower's shadowed heights. "Don't say such things, Colonel. It's bad enough we're chasing ghosts in this dreadful place." Her voice, usually melodious, quavered, betraying the strain of the weekend's mounting mysteries. The locket found in the chapel, bearing her mother's portrait, had shaken her composure, and Poirot noted the faint tremble in her hands. Mr. Clarence, the historian, adjusted his spectacles nervously, his thin frame practically vibrating with excitement or dread. Poirot couldn't yet decide which. Lord Blackthorn was fascinated by mechanisms, Clarence stammered, clutching a worn notebook filled with his scribbled research. "The clock tower was his pride, you know. He designed it himself, said it was the heartbeat of the manor. If there's a clue to the secret key, it's here." Lady Beatrice, the heiress, scoffed, her sharp features twisted in disdain. "Heartbeat or not, this is becoming absurd. All these riddles and traps, it's like we're in some ghastly novel. I came here for answers, not to play treasure hunter." Her voice carried the imperious tone of someone accustomed to getting her way. Poirot detected a flicker of desperation beneath her bravado. The Blackthorn fortune, rumored to be tied to the secret key, was her last hope to reclaim her family's lost wealth. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the group's murmurs. "Mies, Amos, patience. The truth, it does not reveal itself to those who rush. This tower, it holds the next piece of our puzzle. Let us ascend and discover what secrets it guards." The iron door creaked as Poirot pushed it open, revealing a narrow spiral staircase that wound upward into darkness. The air inside was musty, thick with the scent of old metal and damp stone. The group followed reluctantly, their footsteps echoing in the confined space. The colonel's heavy tread was deliberate. Madame Vivian's heels clicked nervously. Clarence's shuffling gait betrayed his anxiety, and Lady Beatrice moved with the reluctant grace of a cat forced into water. Poirot, leading the way, held a small flashlight, its beam cutting through the gloom to illuminate cobwebs and cracked stone. The staircase seemed endless, each turn tightening the knot of tension among the guests. Halfway up, Madame Vivian gasped, clutching Poirot's arm. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "A ticking. Not the clock. Something else." Poirot paused, his head tilted. There it was, faint, irregular, tick-tick-tick, like a metronome out of rhythm, coming from above. I hear it," he said calmly. "It is not the clock, but perhaps another mechanism. We shall see." The colonel muttered something about booby traps, but Poirot pressed on, undeterred. At last they reached the top, emerging into a cavernous chamber where the clock's massive gears loomed like the innards of some ancient beast. The mechanism, though silent, was a marvel of engineering-grade brass cogs interlocked with precision, their surfaces engraved with intricate patterns that caught the faint light filtering through a cracked window. Clock face, visible from the inside, was a mosaic of stained glass, his hands frozen at 10 minutes to midnight. Poirot's eyes gleamed as he surveyed the room. "Magnifique," he breathed, "a masterpiece of design. But why does it not tick? It's the heart of the manor. It is silent. This, Mies Amos, is no accident." Clarence stepped forward, his notebook trembling in his hands. Lord Blackthorn was meticulous about this clock. He said it was calibrated to the stars, that it could mark the exact moment of something. He never explained what, but there's a legend his journals mentioned a riddle tied to the clock's mechanism. Something about stopping time to reveal the truth. Poirot nodded, his gaze fixed on a large brass plate at the base of the mechanism, engraved with a riddle. When shadows align and the hour is set, the heart secret opens to those who don't forget. 12 steps forward, 3 steps back. Set the time where truth's light lacks. Mandra, another riddle, Poirot said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Lord Blackthorne, he was a man who loved his games, but Hercule Poirot, he is no stranger to such challenges. The group gathered around the plate, their faces illuminated by Poirot's flashlight. Lady Beatrice crossed her arms, her impatience palpable. Well, what does it mean? 12 steps forward, 3 steps back. Are we supposed to dance with the clock? Poirot chuckled softly. Not a dance, madame, but a sequence. The riddle speaks of setting the hour, and this clock, it is stopped. Perhaps we must start it again, but at the precise moment the riddle demands. The colonel, ever practical, stepped to the mechanism, inspecting its gears. I've seen setups like this in old fortifications clocks wired to trigger something when set to a specific time. Could be a compartment, maybe a trap. Blackthorne was ex-military, wasn't he? He'd know how to hide something like this. Precisement, Colonel Poirot said, his eyes narrowing. Your expertise, it may be useful. Tell me, what do you make of this mechanism? The colonel ran a calloused hand over the gears, his scowl deepening. It's a custom job, no doubt. Look at these engravings, military ciphers, old ones from the Great War. Blackthorne must have used them to encode something. If we set the clock to the wrong time, we might trigger, well, something unpleasant. Madame Vivian paled, stepping back. You mean like a bomb? Oh heavens, we're all going to die. Calm yourself, Madame, Poirot said firmly. Lord Blackthorne, he was not a man to kill indiscriminately. His traps, they are tests of wit, not weapons of destruction. Okay, let us consider the riddle. 12 steps forward, 3 steps back. This suggests a calculation, a TV take. 12 hours forward from midnight, we arrive at noon. 3 steps back, 3 hours brings us to 9 o'clock. But is it 9 in the morning or 9 at night? Clarence, flipping through his notebook, piped up. Blackthorne's journals mention the stars aligning at night. 9 o'clock at night might be the key. Ain't the part about truths light lacks. Maybe it means darkness when the stars are visible. Poirot nodded approvingly. Fine deduction, Mr. Clarence. Let us test this theory. Colonel, can you set the clock to 9 o'clock? The colonel, grumbling, but intrigued, approached a large crank on the mechanism's side. This'll wind the mainspring. If it's rigged, we'll know soon enough. He began turning the crank, the gears groaning as they stirred to life. The ticking resumed, louder now, filling the chamber with an ominous rhythm. The group held their breath as the colonel carefully adjusted the clock hands, moving them to 9 o'clock. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a low clunk echoed from within the mechanism, followed by a hiss of air. A panel in the brass plate slid open, revealing a small compartment. Poirot reached inside, his movements deliberate, and withdrew. A leather-bound diary, its pages yellowed with age. The group crowded closer, their curiosity outweighing their fear. Mon Dieu. The diary of Lord Blackthorne himself, Poirot said, carefully opening it. The pages were filled with meticulous handwriting, detailing Blackthorne's final days. One entry, dated 20 years prior, caught Poirot's eye. The key is safe, hidden where only the loyal will look. My valet, James, knows the truth, but I fear betrayal. The stars will guide, but only if the hour is set. If you read this, know that my enemies are closer than I dared believe. Madame Vivian gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. My mother. She worked here when I was a child. She mentioned a valet, James, but said he was dismissed after an affair with Lord Blackthorne. She never spoke of it again, but it broke her heart. Poirot's eyes softened, but his mind was racing. Madame, your mother? She was close to Blackthorn. Happed, she knew more than she told. This diary, it suggests a betrayal. But by whom? The valet, or another? Lady Beatrice snorted. An affair? How tawdry. Yes. But it explains why your mother was dismissed. Vivian. Dada. Maybe she was in on it, helping Blackthorn hide this precious key. Madame Vivian's eyes flashed with anger. How dare you? My mother was loyal to a fault. She loved this place, even after they cast her out. If anyone's hiding something, it's you, Beatrice. Your family lost everything when Blackthorn disappeared. Maybe you had a hand in it. Ladies, please. Poirot interjected, his voice sharp. Accusations, they do not help us. The diary, it points to a hidden safe in the library, where the final clue to the secret key may lie. We must focus, or we shall be lost in this maze of motives. The group fell silent, their tensions simmering. Poirot closed the diary, tucking it under his arm. Come, Mies Amos, the library awaits, and with it, perhaps, the truth. As they descended the spiral staircase, the ticking of the clock tower seemed to follow them, a reminder that time was running out. The diary's revelations had deepened the mystery, and Poirot knew the guest's secrets were as tangled as the manor's corridors. The colonel's military past, Madame Vivian's mother, Lady Beatrice's desperation, Clarence's nervous obsession with Blackthorn's history were threads in a web Poirot was determined to unravel. The library. When they reached it, was a cavern of books, its shelves stretching to the ceiling, their spines coated in dust. A massive fireplace dominated one wall, its hearth cold, but Poirot's attention was drawn to a bookcase that seemed slightly askew. Voila, the safe, he said, pointing to a faint outline behind the shelves. But it will not open easily. We must find the combination, and I suspect the diary holds the key. As the guests began searching the library, Poirot sat at a dusty reading table, the diary open beforehand. The entries were dense, filled with Blackthorn's musings on loyalty, betrayal, and the stars. One passage stood out. The safeguards the truth, but only the wise will see. 3 authors, 3 truths, 3 numbers to set you free. Poirot's eyes gleamed. A literary puzzle, he murmured. Blackthorn, he was a man of letters, as well as mechanisms. We must find 3 books, Mies, Amos, and within them, the numbers to unlock the safe. The search was frantic, with the guests pulling books from shelves, their earlier tensions giving way to a shared purpose. Clarence, his historian's instincts kicking in, identified 3 authors mentioned frequently in Blackthorn's journals: Dante, Shakespeare, and Austen. They were his favorites, he said, his voice steadier now. If there's a combination, it's tied to them. Poirot directed the group to find specific works: Dante's Inferno, Shakespeare's Hamlet, and Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Each book, when opened, revealed a number written in Blackthorn's hand on the title page: 9, 3, and 7. The combination, Poirot said, striding to the safe. He input the numbers, and with a soft click, the door swung open. Inside was a bundle of letters, their edges brittle with age. Poirot's hands trembled slightly as he unfolded them, revealing correspondence between Blackthorn and a mysterious figure known only as the Sentinel. The letters hinted at a conspiracy, a network of powerful men Blackthorn had threatened to expose. One name stood out: Colonel Mortimer's father, General Mortimer, a man long dead but whose shadow loomed over the manor's secrets. The colonel's face paled as Poirot read the letters aloud. This can't be," he stammered. "My father was a hero, not a traitor." Poirot's voice was gentle but firm. "Monsieur, the past, it is not always what we wish. the truth, it must be faced. These letters, they suggest your father played a role in Blackthorn's disappearance. Perhaps not alone, but we shall see. Lady Beatrice, sensing an opportunity, pounced. So, Colonel, your family's honor isn't so spotless after all. Maybe you're here to cover it up. Enough, Poirot snapped, his authority silencing. The room, the safe, it has given us a golden key, but I suspect it is another decoy. The true secret key, it lies elsewhere. The letters mention an attic, a place where Blackthorn hid his final confession. We must go there next. As the group prepared to leave the library, a sudden crash echoed from above, followed by a gust of cold air. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Mon Dieu, the attic calls. But we must be cautious. The maze of motives, it grows more dangerous. Chapter 7. The library's truth air in Blackthorn Manor's library was thick with the scent of aged paper and polished wood. A sanctuary of knowledge that seemed to hum with secrets. A towering shelves, laden with leather-bound tomes, stretched toward the vaulted ceiling, where a chandelier hung like a frozen cascade of crystal, catching the dim light of the storm outside. Rain lashed against the tall, arched windows. The winds howled, a constant reminder of the group's isolation. Hercule Poirot stood at the center of the room, his small, meticulous frame dwarfed by the grandeur around him, yet his presence commanded the space. His mustache twitched as he surveyed the scene. His sharp eyes darting from the nervous historian, Mr. Clarence, to the imperious Lady Beatrice, whose fingers twisted the emerald ring on her left hand with increasing agitation. The discovery of the diary in the clock tower had set the guests on edge, each wrestling with the implications of Lord Blackthorn's cryptic final entries. The mention of a hidden safe in the library had ignited a spark of greed in Lady Beatrice's eyes, while Madame Vivian, the actress, clutched her shawl as if it could shield her from the truths lurking in the shadows. The colonel, stoic but pale, leaned against a bookshelf, his military posture betrayed by the slight tremor in his hand. Poirot, however, was in his element. His little gray cells alight with the challenge of unraveling the manor's labyrinthian secrets. Mise, Amos, Poirot began, his voice steady and deliberate. The diary of Lord Blackthorn has pointed us to this library, where a safe, concealed with great care, holds the next piece of our puzzle. We must proceed with method, with order. The truth, it does not yield to haste or to emotion. Lady Beatrice scoffed, her voice sharp as a blade. Method, Monsieur Poirot. We are trapped in this wretched place, chasing riddles while the storm rages. I say, we tear this room apart until we find that safe. My family's fortune depends on it. Poirot raised a hand, his expression unyielding. Nan, Lady Beatrice. To act without thought is to invite chaos. It's safe. It is here, but it is hidden with purpose. We must seek the clues Lord Blackthorn left behind, for he was a man of precision. N'est-ce pas? Mr. Clarence, adjusting his spectacles, cleared his throat nervously. He's right, you know. Lord Blackthorn was meticulous. His diary mentioned the weight of words as the key to the safe's location. Perhaps it's a reference to a specific book or literary code. Madame Vivian's eyes flickered with unease. It's books, codes, riddles. This place is a nightmare. Why can't we just leave? The storm can't last forever. The colonel's deep voice cut through her plaintive tone. "'Cause, Madame, we're here for answers. Blackthorn's disappearance ruined more than just your mother's reputation. My father served with him, and I need to know the truth." Poirot nodded, his gaze softening briefly at the colonel's candor. "Being Colonel, the truth, it is our goal. Let us begin with the diary's clue, the weight of words. Monsieur Clarence, you are a historian. What does this suggest? Do you?" Clarence hesitated, his fingers tracing the spine of a nearby book. It could mean a literal weight, perhaps a book that is heavier than the others, concealing the safe. Or it might be metaphorical, pointing to a work of great significance. Blackthorn was a collector of rare manuscripts. There could be a first edition or a unique volume here. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Exactamente. We shall search for both possibilities. Lady Beatrice, Madame Vivian, assist Monsieur Clarence in examining the shelves for any book that feels unusually heavy or out of place. Colonel, you and I shall inspect the room for structural anomalies. A safe, it is not so easily concealed. The group dispersed, their footsteps muffled by the thick Persian rug. Lady Beatrice, her silk dress rustling, moved with purpose, pulling books from the shelves with barely concealed frustration. Madame Vivienne, more tentative, ran her fingers along the titles, her lips moving silently as she read. Clarence, methodical, began at the far end of the room, lifting each book with care, weighing it in his hands. Poirot and the Colonel, meanwhile, tapped walls and examined the ornate paneling, searching for hidden seams or hollow spaces as the minutes ticked by. The library seemed to close in around them, the storm's fury amplifying the tension. Poirot's keen ears caught a faint creak from the direction of the fireplace. A massive stone structure flanked by two carved lions. He paused, tilting his head. Colonel, assist me, if you please. This fireplace, it is too grand for mere decoration. Serve the symmetry, or the lack thereof. The Colonel joined him, running his hands along the mantel. You're right. The left lion's base is slightly misaligned. Could be a trigger. With a nod, Poirot pressed his fingers against the lion's carved mane, feeling for a mechanism. A soft click echoed, and a section of the bookcase to the right swung inward, revealing a narrow recess. Inside, a steel safe gleamed dully, its surface etched with an intricate pattern of vines and keys. The group gasped, converging on the discovery. There it is, Lady Beatrice exclaimed, pushing past Clarence. Open it, Poirot. We're so close. Poirot held up a hand, his expression stern. Patience, Lady Beatrice. A safe such as this requires a combination. In the diary, it provides only hints. We must consult it again. Clarence produced the diary, its leather cover worn but intact. He flipped to the marked page, reading aloud. The weight of words unlocks the heart of the manor. Seek the wisdom of the ages, where 3 masters guard the truth. 3 masters, Poirot mused, stroking his mustache. This suggests a trio of literary figures, perhaps authors whose works are housed here. Monsieur Clarence, what are the most prized volumes in Blackthorn's collection? Clarence's eyes lit up with scholarly enthusiasm. He was known for his first editions of Shakespeare, Dante, and Cervantes. They are likely on the central shelf, under lock and key. The group hurried to the glass-fronted cabinet at the room's heart, where 3 volumes stood apart. The Tempest by Shakespeare, The Divine Comedy by Dante, and Don Quixote by Cervantes. Each was bound in rich leather, their titles embossed. In gold, Poirot examined the cabinet, noting a small dial beneath the lock. A combination lock, he said. The wisdom of the ages. These 3 works are timeless. How do they yield a combination? Lady Beatrice, her patience. Frang snapped. Numbers, Poirot, pages, chapters, something. Don't just stand there pontificating. Poirot's eyes narrowed, but he remained composed. Madame, the mind, it must be precise. Let us consider, each work is a masterpiece, and each has a structure. Perhaps the combination lies in their opening lines, or significant numbers within. Clarence, flipping through the Divine Comedy, paused. Dante's work is divided into 3 parts: Inferno, Purgatorio, Paradisoic, with 33 cantos, plus an introductory canto for Inferno, making 100 total. Could the number 100 be part of it? Poirot nodded. A possibility. In Shakespeare's The Tempest, it is a play of 5 acts. Cervantes' Don Quixote, 2 parts, published years apart. Let us try a combination. 100 for Dante, 5 for Shakespeare, 2 for Cervantes. The colonel stepped forward, turning the dial with precision. 100, 5, 2. A click sounded, but the safe did not open. Lady Beatrice groaned, throwing her hands up. "Wrong," she cried. "We're wasting time." Poirot's expression remained calm. "Nan, we are learning. The combination, it is literary, but not so simple. Let us think further. The diary speaks of the heart of the manor. Perhaps the clue lies not in the structure of the works, but in their content." Madame Vivian, who had been silent, spoke up hesitantly. "My mother used to read me The Tempest. There's a line about a maze, isn't there? Something about being lost in a labyrinth." Poirot's eyes sparkled. "Oui, madame. Act 4, Scene I. This is a maze trod indeed, a labyrinth, like the gardens we navigated. And in Don Quixote there is the cave of Montesinos, a descent into mystery. In the Divine Comedy, the journey through hell is a spiral. These are not numbers, but themes, journeys, mazes, quests, the combination. It may be symbolic." Clarence, inspired, rifled through the diary again. Here, a marginal note, the first step, the 5th turn, the 2nd dream. Could that be it? The 1st canto of Inferno, the 5th act of The Tempest, the 2nd part of Don Quixote. Poirot clapped his hands. "Bravo, Monsieur Clarence. Let us try. 1, 5, 2. The colonel reset the dial, turning it carefully. A louder click resounded, and the safe's door began to swing open. But before it could fully reveal its contents, a sharp crack echoed through the library. The lights flickered, and a hidden mechanism triggered, slamming the bookcase shut and sealing the group inside the recess with the safe. Lady Beatrice screamed, pounding on the bookcase. "We're trapped. That blasted safe was a trap, madame." Vivian clutched Poirot's arm, her voice trembling. "We can't stay here." The colonel, ever practical, examined the walls. "No ventilation. Need to find the release mechanism, and fast." Poirot, undeterred, studied the safe's interior, now partially visible. Inside lay a bundle of letters, yellowed with age, and a single golden key, its surface engraved with a delicate key symbol matching the letter that had summoned him. He reached for the letters, but Clarence grabbed his wrist. "Don't touch them yet," the historian hissed. "If this is a trap, there could be another mechanism." Poirot nodded, withdrawing his hand. "You are wise, monsieur, but we must act quickly. The diary's clues have led us here, and the letters, they will reveal the truth. Let us find the release." The group searched the cramped recess, their breaths shallow in the stale air. Poirot's fingers traced the safe's edges, finding a small lever hidden in the vine pattern. He pulled it, and with a groan, the bookcase slid open, freeing them. They stumbled back into the library, gasping. Lady Beatrice, her composure shattered, lunged for the safe, seizing the golden key. "This is it, the secret key. I'm not waiting for more riddles, for anyone could stop her." She bolted toward the door, only for Poirot to step smoothly in her path, his cane tapping the floor. "Nan, Lady Beatrice, that key, it is too perfect, too obvious. It is another decoy, I am certain. The true secret key, it remains hidden." She glared at him, clutching the key. "You're mad? This is what we've been chasing." Poirot's voice was calm but firm. "And yet, the diary speaks of betrayal, of a truth guarded by layers of deception. This key, it unlocks something, but not the vault of Lord Blackthorn's fortune. Return it, and let us examine the letters." Reluctantly, Lady Beatrice handed over the key. Poirot opened the safe fully, retrieving the bundle of letters. He spread them on a nearby table, their wax seals cracked but legible. A keech was addressed to Lord Blackthorn, written in a hurried, desperate hand. Clarence read the first aloud. My lord, they know. Tet, the syndicate moves against you. Hide the key, or all is lost. It's signed, E.M. Madame Vivian paled. E.M. That could be my mother, Eliza Moreau. K. She wrote to him, warning him. The colonel's jaw tightened, or accusing him. My father mentioned a woman who betrayed Blackthorn's trust. Could it be her? Poirot held up a hand. We must not jump to conclusions. These letters, they speak of a syndicated network of powerful men. Blackthorn's disappearance, it was no accident. The key, it protects something greater than gold. As the group pored over the letters, each revealing fragments of a conspiracy, a sudden realization struck Poirot. The attic, he said, his voice cutting through the murmurs. The diary mentioned the ghosts of the past. The attic of Blackthorn Manor, it is the final piece. This key, it may unlock a trunk or a door there, where the true secret key awaits. Beatrice's eyes narrowed. And if it's another trap? Poirot smiled faintly. Then Madame Hercule Poirot shall be ready. Let us ascend to the attic and face the ghosts together. The group, weary but driven, gathered their resolve. The storm outside roared on, but within the library a new determination took hold. Poirot led the way, the golden key in his pocket, the letters tucked under his arm, and the weight of Blackthorn's truth guiding his steps. Chapter 8. The Attic's Ghost. The air in Blackthorn Manor's attic was thick with dust, the kind that swirled in faint motes under the weak light filtering through a single grime-streaked window. Hercule Poirot stood at the threshold, his polished shoes hesitating on the creaking floorboards, as if the very act of stepping into this forgotten realm might disturb secrets long buried. The golden key, retrieved from the library's safe, gleamed faintly in his gloved hand, its intricate engravings catching the dim glow. Behind him, the guests, Colonel Harrington, Madame Vivian, Lady Beatrice, and Mr. Clarence clustered, nervously, their breaths uneven in the stifling air. The attic was a labyrinth of relics, trunks stacked haphazardly, draped in moth-eaten cloths, portraits with eyes that seemed to follow, and furniture shrouded like ghosts under sheets yellowed by time. The weight of Blackthorn Manor's past pressed down on them, and Poirot's sharp gaze scanned the room. His little gray cells already worry. Ma Andrea, Poirot murmured, his voice cutting through the silence. This attic, it is a mausoleum of memories, Nan. But somewhere within lies the final piece of our puzzle, the secret key's true purpose. He stepped forward, his cane tapping lightly, and the guests followed, their footsteps echoing like whispers of the manor's former inhabitants. Lady Beatrice, her auburn hair slightly disheveled from the climb, adjusted her first stole with a huff. This place is ghastly, she said, her voice sharp but tinged with unease. If that key unlocks nothing but more dust, I swear I'll burn this manor to the ground myself. Patience, Lady Beatrice, Poirot replied, his tone calm but firm. The hasty mind overlooks the subtle, and here, in this attic, the subtle is everything. Colonel Harrington, his military posture rigid despite the oppressive atmosphere, scanned the room with narrowed eyes. Subtle or not, Poirot, we're running out of time. Key must open something Lord Blackthorn's. Fortune, perhaps, or proof of his fate. I say we tear this place apart. Madame Vivian, her actress's poise faltering, clutched her silk shawl tighter. Teared apart can disturb whatever spirits linger here. I felt something in the ballroom, and now this place. She shivered, her eyes darting to the shadowed corners. Mr. Clarence, the historian, fidgeted with his spectacles, his nervous energy palpable. Spirits or not, this attic was Lord Blackthorn's sanctuary. His diaries mentioned it often a place where he hid his most private thoughts. If the secret key is here, it's in something personal, not some gaudy treasure chest. Poirot nodded, his mustache twitching slightly. Spear Clarence. The key is not merely a tool for locks, but a symbol of Lord Blackthorn's intent. We must think, as he did methodically, deliberately. He moved toward a towering oak trunk, its surface carved with intricate vines, and ran his fingers along its edges. The golden key in his hand seemed to hum with purpose, as if drawn to its counterpart. The trunk was locked, its brass clasp rusted but sturdy. Poirot inserted the golden key, and with a soft click, the mechanism yielded. The guests crowded closer, their anticipation palpable. Inside, they found not gold or jewels, but a collection of personal effects: a silver cigarette case, a faded photograph of a young couple, and a leather-bound notebook, its pages brittle with age. Poirot lifted the notebook, his eyes gleaming with interest. "This," he said, holding it aloft, "is the voice of Lord Blackthorn himself. 'Tis valet's confession, perhaps, or a clue to the key's final resting place." As Poirot opened the notebook, a faint creak came from the far end of the attic. The guests froze, their eyes wide. "What was that?" Madame Vivian whispered, her voice barely audible. "Rats, no doubt," Colonel Harrington said gruffly, though his hand rested on the revolver at his hip. "Or the house settling," Lady Beatrice added, her tone unconvincing. Poirot, undeterred, flipped through the notebook's pages. The handwriting was meticulous, detailing Lord Blackthorn's final months. Entries spoke of his growing paranoia, his distrust of those closest to him, and his obsession with the secret key. One passage caught Poirot's eye. "The key is my legacy, hidden where only the pure of heart may find it. The attic holds my truth, but the stars must guide the way." Stars, Poirot mused aloud, his gaze lifting to the attic's ceiling. It was slanted, punctuated by exposed beams, but no skylight or window offered a view of the night sky. Curio. Stars. They are not literal here, perhaps, but symbolic. "We must search for a constellation, a pattern," the guests began, scouring the attic, their movements cautious but urgent. Lady Beatrice overturned a pile of crates, revealing a collection of astronomical charts, their edges curling like ancient scrolls. Mr. Clarence examined them, his fingers trembling. "These are Lord Blackthorn's star maps," he said. He was an amateur astronomer, fascinated by the heavens, but why hide them here? Colonel Harrington, meanwhile, pushed aside a heavy tapestry, revealing a narrow staircase leading upward. "Poirot, look at this," he called. "It's not on the manor's blueprints. Could it lead to the roof?" Poirot's eyes narrowed. "A hidden stair in a hidden attic. Oui, Colonel. This is promising." He gestured for the group to follow, but Madame Vivian hesitated, her face pale. I can't go up there," she said, her voice trembling. "My mother, she warned me about this place. She said Lord Blackthorn's spirit never left, that he watches from above." "Nonsense," Lady Beatrice snapped, though her own hands shook as she gripped her shawl. "Ghosts don't exist, Vivian. Let's get this over with." Poirot, ever the diplomat, placed a reassuring hand on Madame Vivian's arm. "Madame, your fear is natural, but Hercule Poirot does not believe in ghosts only, in truths hidden by fear. Stay close, and we shall face this together." Reluctantly, she nodded, and the group ascended the narrow staircase, the wood groaning under their weight. The air grew colder as they climbed, and a faint draft carried the scent of rain and stone. At the top, they emerged onto a small platform, barely large enough for them all. Above, a circular skylight, half covered in grime, revealed the sliver of the stormy sky beyond. Lightning flashed, illuminating the platform and casting eerie shadows. Poirot's gaze fixed on the skylight's frame, where faint etchings formed a Paterna constellation, perhaps, or a map. Voila, he said softly. The stars of Lord Blackthorn. But what do they guide us to? Mr. Clarence, his historian's instincts kicking in, traced the etchings with his finger. This is Orion, he said, the hunter. Lord Blackthorn wrote of it often as a symbol of pursuit, perhaps. Or pursuit of the key, Lady Beatrice added, her eyes gleaming with greed. If it's up here, it must be close. Colonel Harrington, ever practical, began inspecting the platform's edges. His boot struck something metallic, and a dull clang echoed. He knelt, brushing away dust, to reveal a small, ornate box embedded in the floor, its lid engraved with the same constellation pattern. Poirot, this is it, he said, his voice tight with excitement. Poirot knelt beside him, the golden key still in hand. The box's lock was intricate, designed for a key of precise craftsmanship. He inserted the key, but it didn't turn. Frowning, he examined the lock more closely. Nan, this is not the lock for our key. It is another test, another layer of Lord Blackthorn's maze. Madame Vivian, her courage returning, stepped forward. Let me try, she said, her voice steadier now. She reached into her pocket and produced a small locket, the one from the chapel, with her mother's portrait. To everyone's surprise, the locket's edge fit perfectly into a secondary slot beside the lock. With a soft click, the box sprang open, revealing a folded parchment and a single, glittering object, a silver ring, graved with the same key symbol as the letter that had summoned them. Poirot lifted the parchment, his eyes scanning the text. It is a confession, he said, his voice low. From Lord Blackthorn's valet, as we suspected. He writes of hiding the secret key to protect it from those who sought to steal Lord Blackthorn's fortune. But listen to this. The key is not in the box, nor in the vault, but where the manor's eyes meet the sky. The manor's eyes. Lady Beatrice repeated, her brow furrowing. What does that mean? Poirot's gaze returned to the skylight, the eyes of the manor, the gargoyles on the roof. They watch over the estate, Nan, and they meet the sky. He turned to the group, his expression resolute. We must climb higher. The idea of scaling the manor's roof in a storm sent a ripple of unease through the group. Poirot's certainty was infectious. Colonel Harrington, his military training taken over, fashioned a makeshift rope from a coil found in the attic, securing it to a beam. I'll go first, he said gruffly. There's a gargoyle hiding that key. I'll find it. The climb was treacherous, the wind howling as they emerged onto the slick, sloping roof. Lightning illuminated the grotesque stone gargoyles perched along the eaves, their carved faces snarling into the night. Poirot, his coat flapping in the wind, pointed to the largest gargoyle, its base wide enough to conceal a compartment. There, he said, the manor's eyes. Colonel Harrington, with Poirot's guidance, reached the gargoyle and ran his hands along its base. A faint seam revealed a hidden panel, and with a grunt, he pried it open. Inside, a small, ornate box gleamed in the lightning's flash, its surface etched with the key symbol. He handed it to Poirot, who opened it with a golden key from the library. Inside was not the secret key, but a single, folded note. Poirot read it aloud, his voice steady despite the storm. To the one who finds this, you are close. The key lies where the manor's heart beats strongest, guarded by time itself. The guests exchanged frustrated glances. Another riddle, Lady Beatrice cried, her voice nearly lost in the wind. This is madness. Nan, Madame Poirot said, his eyes alight with determination. It is method. The heart of the manor, guarded by time, this points to the clock tower. We have been led in circles, But each circle brings us closer to the truth. As they descended from the roof, a sudden crash echoed from the attic below. The group froze, their eyes meeting in shared alarm. "Someone is in there," Mr. Clarence whispered, his face pale. Poirot's expression hardened. "Or something," he said, though his tone suggested he believed in no such thing. "Come, Mies, Amos. The attic's ghosts have one final secret to share." They returned to the attic, their footsteps cautious. The air felt heavier now, charged with an unspoken tension. In the corner, a pile of crates had toppled, revealing a hidden alcove. Within it stood a small, locked chest, its surface carved with the same constellation as the skylight. Poirot approached, the golden key still in hand. This time, it fit perfectly, and the chest opened to reveal a velvet pouch. Inside was a small silver key, the secret key itself, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to pulse. In the dim light, the guest gasped, their eyes fixed on the key. But before anyone could speak, a shadow moved in the corner, a figure, cloaked in darkness, lunging toward Poirot. Colonel Harrington reacted swiftly, tackling the figure to the ground. In the scuffle, a hood fell back, revealing Mr. Clarence, his face contorted with desperation. "Clarence," Lady Beatrice exclaimed. "You had to have it." The historian stammered, his glasses askew. "The key, it's not just a fortune. It's proof of Blackthorn's innocence, proof that could rewrite history." Poirot, unruffled, dusted off his coat. "Monsieur Clarence, your zeal for history is admirable, but your methods lack finesse. The key is safe, and your actions have only confirmed its importance." He held up the silver key, its surface catching the light. "This, Mies Amos, is the secret key, but its purpose is not yet clear. We must descend to the vault, where the manor's heart awaits." As they prepared to leave the attic, Poirot's gaze lingered on the skylight, the storm still raging beyond. The ghosts of Blackthorn Manor were not spectral, he knew, but human, born of greed, fear, and secrets. With the secret key in hand, he felt the weight of the final challenge ahead, his mind already piecing together the manor's last riddle. Chapter 9. The gargoyles prized the attic of Blackthorn Manor was a cavern of shadows, its air thick with the dust of forgotten years. Hercule Poirot stood amidst the relics of Lord Reginald Blackthorn's life, his sharp eyes scanning the cluttered space. The golden key, retrieved from the library's safe, gleamed faintly in his gloved hand, its intricate engravings catching the dim light filtering through a cracked skylight. The guest, Colonel Hargrove, Madame Vivian, Lady Beatrice, and Mr. Clarence huddled near the attic center, their faces a mixture of anticipation and dread. The revelation of the valet's confession, found in the locked trunk, had ignited a fire of suspicion among them, each wondering if the others held a secret lineage to the mysterious valet who had hidden the secret key. Poirot's mind, ever precise, churned through the clues accumulated over the past days, the journal's cryptic entries, the coded map, the star-shaped device, and now the valet's confession. The secret key, he deduced, was not merely a physical object, but a symbol of truth, a means to unlock the manor's darkest secrets. The confession had pointed to the rooftop gargoyles, and the sudden crash of the skylight moments ago had revealed a glint high above. Poirot's gaze lifted to the ceiling, where the broken skylight offered a glimpse of the stormy sky beyond. "Mies Amos," Poirot began, his voice calm yet commanding. "Apia, the solution lies above us. The gargoyles, they guard the final piece of this puzzle. We must ascend to the roof." Lady Beatrice, her auburn hair disheveled from the attic's dust, clutched her shawl tightly. "The roof, in this storm. Monsieur Poirot, surely you jest." "The storm, madame, is but nature's distraction," Poirot replied, his mustache twitching with a faint smile. The truth, it does not wait for clear skies. Colonel Hargrove, his military bearing strained by the mounting tension, adjusted his spectacles. I've climbed worse in my day, but this feels like a trap. That confession, how do we know it's not leading us to our doom? Mr. Clarence, the historian, fidgeted with his notebook, his nervous energy palpable. The valet's words were clear. He hid the key to protect it from thieves. But who among us is the thief? Or are we all descendants of his secrets? Madame Vivienne, her actress's poise fraying, snapped. Enough of this. My mother suffered because of this manor's secrets. I want that key, not for greed, but for answers. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the rising voices. Patience, Mies, Amos. The key, it is near, but it demands our unity. We climb together, or we fail. Alone. The group followed Poirot to a narrow spiral staircase tucked in the attic's corner. Its iron steps rusted but sturdy. The wind howled outside, rattling the manor's ancient bones as they ascended. The staircase opened onto a small platform just below the roof, where a trapdoor led to the open air. Poirot, with surprising agility for a man of his fastidious nature, pushed the trapdoor open, revealing a tempestuous sky. Rain lashed the slate tiles, slate slee, and lightning illuminated the grotesque silhouettes of the gargoyles perched along the parapet. Guests hesitated, but Poirot stepped onto the roof, his coat whipping in the wind. Come, come. The gargoyles, they do not bite, but they hold secrets. Reluctantly, the others followed, clinging to the parapet for support. The gargoyles, carved from weathered stone, loomed like silent sentinels, their hollow eyes staring into the storm. Poirot moved methodically, inspecting each one. Its glint he had seen from the attic had come from the third gargoyle, its fanged maw slightly ajar. He reached inside, his fingers brushing against something cold and metallic. Box, he exclaimed, pulling out a small, ornate container no larger than a cigar case. Its surface was etched with intricate patterns, and a single keyhole adorned its front. The golden key, he suspected, would fit perfectly. Lady Beatrice's eyes widened. Is that it? The secret key? Poirot shook his head. Nan, madame, this is but the vessel. The key lies within, but it demands a final test of intellect. He knelt, shielding the box from the rain, and examined its engravings. The patterns formed a riddle, written in an archaic script that blended Latin and Old English. Poirot's linguistic prowess, honed over years of solving multilingual mysteries, came to the fore. Hey, murmured the words aloud, translating as he went in shadows cast by moon's pale light. Seek the star that burns most bright, turn the heart where shadows meet, and claim the prize at wisdom's seat. The star that burns most bright, Poirot mused, glancing at the stormy sky. Star-shaped device from the ballroom mid is the key to this riddle. He retrieved the strange, star-shaped device from his pocket, its metallic points gleaming faintly. The guests crowded around, their breath visible in the chilly air. Poirot aligned the device with the box's engravings, noting how the star's points matched a constellation-like pattern on the lid. He pressed the device against the box, and a soft click echoed. It's barely audible over the storm. The box sprang open, revealing a small, intricately carved silver key nestled in velvet. The secret key. Its surface was etched with a labyrinthine design, and its weight suggested craftsmanship beyond mere utility. The guests gasped, their eyes locked on the prize. It's beautiful. Madame Vivienne whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Colonel Hargrove's jaw tightened. And dangerous. That key could ruin us all if it falls into the wrong hands. Scholarly instincts overriding his fear reached out. Let me see it. It's a historical artifact. Before he could finish, a sudden gust of wind tore across the roof, and Clarence lunged forward, his hand grasping for the key. Poirot, the reflexes honed by years of anticipating human folly, pulled the box back. But Clarence's momentum carried him into Lady Beatrice, who stumbled against the parapet. The group erupted in chaos, accusations flying as rain pelted their faces. "You fool!" Lady Beatrice shrieked, shoving Clarence back. "You'd steal it for yourself. Only wanted to study it." Clarence protested, his glasses fogged with rain. "Enough." Poirot's voice cut through the storm like a blade. "The key? It is not for any one of us alone. It unlocks a vault. But also a truth. We descend now to the manor's heart." A group, chastened, followed Poirot back through the trapdoor, their clothes sodden and spirits frayed. The silver key, now secured in Poirot's pocket, seemed to pulse with a life of its own. As they descended the spiral staircase, Poirot's mind raced. The valet's confession had mentioned a vault beneath the manor, a place where Lord Blackthorne had hidden his greatest secret. But the confession also hinted at danger trap for the unworthy. Back in the manor's grand hall, Poirot led the group to a stone staircase hidden behind a tapestry, its entrance revealed by the coded map from Chapter 2. The staircase spiraled downward, its walls damp and moss-covered. The air grew colder, the silence broken only by the drip of water and the guests' uneven breaths. "This feels like a tomb," Madame Vivian whispered, her voice echoing off the stone. "Perhaps it is," Poirot replied, his tone measured. "But tombs, they often hold treasures." At the bottom of the staircase, they found a massive steel door, its surface engraved with the same labyrinthine design as the secret key. A keyhole, perfectly matched to the silver key, gleamed in the center. Poirot inserted the key, but before he could turn it, a low rumble shook the ground. The guests froze as a section of the floor slid open, revealing a trapdoor that plunged into darkness. "A trap," Colonel Hargrove barked, stepping back. "Knew it?" Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Nan, Colonel, a test. The key, it is not only for the door, but for the trapdoor. Observe." He knelt beside the trapdoor, examining its edges. A small, hidden slot, barely visible, matched the key's unique shape. Poirot inserted the key and turned it gently. With a groan, the trapdoor lifted, revealing a narrow ladder descending into a subterranean chamber. The guests hesitated, but Poirot's.com authorities spurred them forward. "Follow Mies, Amos. The vault awaits." The chamber below was vast, its walls lined with ancient stone carvings depicting scenes of wealth and betrayal. At its center stood the vault's entrance, second steel door, even larger than the first, with a keyhole that glowed faintly in the torchlight. Poirot approached, the secret key in hand, but paused. The carvings told a story. Lord Blackthorne, betrayed by those he trusted, designed this vault to protect his legacy from greed. K was the final piece, but the vault's true purpose remained unclear as Poirot inserted the key. The door shuddered, and a series of clicks echoed through the chamber. The guests braced themselves, expecting another trap, but the door swung open, revealing a cavernous space filled not with gold or jewels, but with shelves of documents, letters, and ledgers. A single pedestal stood at the center, holding a sealed envelope marked with the Blackthorne crest. Lady Beatrice's face fell. This is the fortune. Papers." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Nan, Madame, this is power. The truth, it is more valuable than gold." He opened the envelope, revealing a letter written in Lord Blackthorne's hand. It detailed a network of corruption involving powerful figures in government and industry, men who had profited from Blackthorne's downfall. The valet, loyal to his master, had hidden the key to ensure these documents remained safe until someone like Poirot could bring them to light. The guests, stunned, absorbed the revelation. Colonel Hargrove's face paled, his father's name mentioned in the documents as a key conspirator. Madame Vivian clutched the locket from the chapel, tears streaming down her face as she realized her mother's disgrace was tied to this conspiracy. Mr. Clarence, for once silent, scribbled notes furiously, as if to anchor himself in the face of such truth. Lady Beatrice, her dreams of wealth shattered, sank to the floor, her defiance replaced by resignation. Poirot turned to the group, his voice steady. The secret key. It was never about wealth. It was about justice. Lord Blackthorne, he entrusted his legacy to those who would seek the truth, not the treasure. The chamber trembled again, and Poirot's sharp eyes caught a shift in the carving's a hidden mechanism. He inserted the key into a final slot beside the pedestal, and the shelves parted, revealing a narrow passage leading back to the manor's surface. The trapdoor, it seemed, was not meant to ensnare, but to test resolve as the group ascended. The storm above had calmed, and dawn's first light broke through the clouds. Poirot held the envelope tightly, knowing its contents would shake the foundations of power. The secret key, now fulfilled in its purpose, rested in his pocket, a symbol of the triumph of intellect over greed. The guests, forever changed, stood in the manor's hall, their motives laid bare. Poirot, with a quiet nod, promised to deliver the documents to the authorities, ensuring Blackthorne's legacy would finally find justice. And so, the maze of motives began to unravel, its threads leading not to riches, but to redemption. Chapter 10. The vault's revelation. The air in the vault's antechamber was thick with dust, stirred by the nervous breaths of the assembled guests. The massive steel door loomed before them, its surface etched with intricate carvings of vines and keys, as if mocking their anticipation. Hercule Poirot stood at the center, the small, intricately carved silver secret key glinting in his gloved hand. Its delicate filigree caught the dim light of the lanterns, casting faint, dancing shadows on the stone walls. The group, weary from the night's revelations and the labyrinthine trials of Blackthorne Manor, watched him with a mixture of awe and trepidation. The colonel's weathered face was set in a grim line. Madame Vivian's eyes darted nervously. Lady Beatrice clutched her shawl as if it could shield her from the truth. And Mr. Clarence, the historian, fidgeted with his spectacles, his fingers trembling. Poirot's mustache twitched as he surveyed the door. "Mies Amos," he said, his voice steady yet carrying the weight of the moment. "We stand at the precipice of truth. This key, so long hidden, is not merely a tool for a lock, but a symbol of Lord Blackthorne's final act of defiance. What lies beyond this door will not only reveal his fate, but expose the motives that have bound us all in this maze of secrets." The guests exchanged glances, their earlier rivalries subdued by the gravity of the moment. The vault, buried deep beneath the manor's foundations, felt like the heart of Blackthorne's legacia, a place where the past would finally speak. Poirot stepped forward, his polished shoes clicking on the stone floor, and inserted the secret key into the lock. It fit perfectly, as if crafted for this moment alone. With a slow, deliberate turn, a deep groan echoed from within the mechanism, and the door began to shift, its hinges protesting after decades of silence. As the door swung open, a gust of stale air rushed out, carrying the scent of old paper and wax. The chamber beyond was vast, its walls lined with shelves stacked high with leather-bound ledgers, sealed envelopes, and bundles of yellowed letters tied with faded ribbon. No gold glittered here, no jewels sparkled. Instead, the vault was a mausoleum of secrets, a repository of truths Lord Blackthorne had guarded with his life. Poirot's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "Voila," he murmured, stepping inside. "The fortune we sought is not one of coin, but of knowledge. And knowledge, Mies Amos, can be more dangerous than gold." The guests hesitated at the threshold, their expectations shattered. Lady Beatrice's voice broke the silence, sharp with disappointment. This is it. A room full of papers, high bankrupted by family, chasing a myth. Her emerald eyes flashed, but there was a tremor in her voice, betraying her fear that the truth might be more costly than her lost fortune. Poirot turned, his expression unyielding. Madame, the value of what lies here cannot be measured in pounds or shillings. These documents hold the threads of a conspiracy that cost Lord Blackthorne his life. And perhaps, he added, his gaze sweeping over the group, the lives of others. The colonel stepped forward, his military bearing restored despite the revelations about his father's past. Poirot, you've led us this far. What do these papers say? If my father was involved, I have a right to know. Indeed, Colonel Marwood Poirot replied, his tone softening slightly. But the truth requires patience. Let us begin. He moved to a heavy oak table at the center of the vault, where a single lantern cast a warm glow over a pile of documents. The guests gathered around, their shadows merging into a single, wavering silhouette. Poirot untied a bundle of letters, their wax seals cracked but intact, bearing the same ornate key symbol as the invitation that had brought him here. He began to read aloud, his voice clear and precise, each word carefully chosen to unravel. The mystery, my dearest Margaret, he began, reading from a letter dated 20 years prior. The vultures circled closer, their greed blinding them to the danger. I have hidden the key, not for wealth, but to protect the evidence that will bring them down. If I fall, it will be at their hands, but the truth will endure, madame. Vivian gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Margaret, that was my mother's name. She spoke of Lord Blackthorne with such sadness, but she never told me why. Poirot nodded, his eyes narrowing. Your mother, madame, was more than a maid. She was Lord Blackthorne's confidant, perhaps his only ally in his final days. These letters suggest she knew of the conspiracy against him. Mr. Clarence adjusted his spectacles, his voice quivering. Conspiracy? But who? Lord Blackthorne was a recluse, obsessed with his artifacts. Who would want him dead? Poirot's gaze settled on the colonel. That, Monsieur Clarence, is what we shall uncover. But first, let us examine the evidence. He spread out a series of documents, ledgers detailing financial transactions, coded telegrams, and a map of London marked with locations. Poirot, recognized as hubs of political and financial power in the early 1900s. As he pieced together the fragments, a picture emerged of Lord Blackthorne's secret crusade. He had been investigating a network of influential figures, politicians, businessmen, and even military officers who profited from illegal arms deals during the Boer War. The ledgers showed payments funneled through shell companies, bribes to silence witnesses, and threats to those who dared to speak. The colonel's face paled as Poirot laid out a telegram signed with his father's initials, Colonel Edmund Marwood. This cannot be, he muttered, his hands clenching into fists. My father was a hero, decorated for valor. He would never. Heroes, Colonel, are not immune to temptation, Poirot said gently. Your father's name appears repeatedly in these documents, linked to a man named Victor Grayson, a broker who facilitated the arms deals. Grayson vanished shortly after Lord Blackthorne's disappearance, but these papers suggest he was silenced. Lady Beatrice, her composure frank, interjected. What does this have to do with the secret key? If there's no fortune, why did Blackthorne go to such lengths to hide it? Poirot picked up another letter, this one addressed to no one, as, if written in haste, the key is my final gambit, he read. It unlocks not a vault of gold, but a truth that will shake the foundations of power. I entrust it to the one who finds it, for they must be worthy of its burden. He paused, letting the words sink in. Lord Blackthorne knew his enemies were closing in. He hid the key to ensure that, should he die, someone would uncover his evidence and bring his betrayers to justice. The key was his insurance, hidden through a trail of riddles to protect it from those who sought only profit. Mr. Clarence, his curiosity overcoming his nerves, leaned forward. But who betrayed him? If the valet hid the key, who killed Blackthorn? Poirot's eyes gleamed with a thrill of the chase. That, monsieur, is the final piece of our puzzle. Let us consider the facts. He began pacing the vault, his hands clasped behind his back, his mind weaving together the threads of the case. Lord Blackthorn was betrayed by someone close, someone who knew his habits, his secrets. The diary in the clock tower spoke of a betrayal, and the letters in the vault named names, but one name stands out above the others. He stopped, turning to face the colonel. Colonel Marwood, your father was not merely involved in the arms deals. He was the linchpin. These documents show he met with Blackthorn the night he vanished, under the pretense of discussing a military contract. But the meeting was a trap. Blackthorn was poisoned, his body disposed of to conceal the crime. The colonel staggered back, his face ashen. You're accusing my father of murder. On what evidence? Poirot held up a small, folded note, its edges worn but legible. This was found among the documents, written in your father's hand. It confesses to his role, not out of malice, but fear. Kay wrote, I had no choice. Blackthorn's crusade threatened us all. Acted to protect my family, my honor. The room fell silent, the weight of the revelation crushing. Madame Vivian reached out, her voice soft. Colonel, I'm sorry. My mother never spoke of this, but I remember her tears, her fear of someone powerful. It must have been your father. Lady Beatrice, her earlier anger replaced by a quiet resolve, spoke up. What now, Poirot? This is true. What do we do with it? The men named in these papers, some are still alive, still powerful. Poirot nodded, his expression grave. That, madame, is the burden of truth. These documents must be delivered to the authorities, but with care. The network Blackthorn uncovered has roots that may still thrive. We must act swiftly but discreetly. Mr. Clarence, his voice steadier now, asked, and the key? What becomes of it? Poirot held up the silver key, its surface catching the lantern's light. The key has served its purpose. T has led us to the truth. T will remain with me until the documents are safely in the hands of those who can act upon them. The group stood in the vault, surrounded by the weight of Blackthorn's legacy. The storm outside had calmed, and the manor felt quieter, as if relieved of its secrets. Poirot led the guests back to the surface, the documents carefully packed into a leather satchel. As they emerged into the manor's grand hall, the first rays of dawn filtered through the windows, casting a soft glow over the weary group. The colonel, his shoulders slumped, spoke quietly. Poirot, I need time to process this. My father's legacy is all I have. To know he was capable of such a thing. Poirot placed a hand on his shoulder. Monsieur, the sins of the father are not yours to bear. You have shown courage. In facing this truth, that is your legacy. Madame Vivian, her eyes red but resolute, added, my mother would want justice, not vengeance. I'll help however I can. Lady Beatrice, her pragmatism returning, nodded, came for a fortune, and found something better a purpose. Let's see this through. Mr. Clarence, clutching his notebook, smiled faintly. I'll document it all, Poirot. Blackthorn's story deserves to be told. As the guests prepared to depart, Poirot stood at the manor's entrance, watching the sunrise paint the sky in hues of gold and crimson. The secret key rested in his pocket, a reminder of the intricate dance of motives he had unraveled. He thought of Lord Blackthorn, a man who had fought alone against a tide of corruption, and felt a quiet satisfaction. The case was closed, the truth lay bare, and justice, though delayed, would prevail. Poirot turned back to the manor one last time, his little gray cells already anticipating his return to London. "The maze of motives," he murmured, "is no match for the order of truth." And with that, Hercule Poirot stepped into the waiting carriage, ready to deliver Blackthorn's legacy to the world.